All right, we are returning from executive session. If you'll please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Maybe. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. We will go right into our consent agenda. We have meeting minutes from March 6th, March 20th, and March 31st. Those were all linked. Everybody should have had an opportunity to review them. Oh, Ed. Hi.
Sorry.
Were there any comments or changes on the minutes?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to accept the minutes as presented in the packet for March 6th, 30th, and 31st.
Seconded.
Okay, any other discussion? All right, we'll take a vote. Mr. Hicks?
Yes.
Mr. Moskovich? Yes. Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Cormier?
Yes.
And I vote yes. So approved. Going into communications, we have our student representative report. And we're so happy we have all four of them here. I think it's been a while since all four have been present, so welcome, and we'll turn the time over to you.
You go first? Oh, doesn't go that far.
It's okay. Stand up a little bit. So our first piece of information is on MCAS testing. The sophomores had their ELA test on March 25th and 26th, and they'll be having their math in May on the 20th and the 21st, and the freshman's bio is June 4th and 5th. And then we also have a note on the e-waste club, which I didn't know was a thing, but apparently it is. And they did a good job on collecting batteries to properly recycle them. And Miss Holman's like s'mores newsletter, yeah, it has more information on that. So shout out to them. Future Medical Professionals is making a stomach bug bacteria case study, which they'll be diving into Wednesday before school. April break's coming up. It's going to be the 19th to the 27th if we're counting the weekends. And just a quick note on April break as well. It's going to be a great time to like wind down, but also especially if you're like taking AP exams or anything like that, or studying for finals. Stay sharp. You know, do a little bit of review. Don't forget everything.
Sorry. Also, we have a couple trips coming up over break. The Ireland trip is happening. Students, including myself, will be visiting places like Dublin, Galway, Belfast, and Killarney. The France trip is also coming up, where they will get to visit places like Nice and Monaco. And then we also have some student concerns about the language department. Students that are in higher level classes are worried about not continuing to have those challenging classes, alongside worrying about losing valuable resources and opportunities such as in-person classes, international field trips, and exchange programs. Those in lower level classes are worried about having enough seats in language classes and whether or not language will stay a requirement at NAS. There is general discontent for losing the department in the middle school, and students are concerned about decreased preparation for high school content and classes. The students had a walkout in support of teachers and education last Monday, which administration ensured went safely, and that students were well informed about their rights to protest, as well as the unexcused absence that would follow. Teachers who had all their students leave their classrooms followed protocol and ensured they stayed safe outside. And overall, many students have become distraught at losing a large portion of our language department and continue to worry about the future changes to NAA at the high school that may follow.
Oh, that noise was terrible. I'm sorry. The North Andover Student Council, we're attending the Northeast Massachusetts Association Student Council regional conference. Very excited. There's going to be elections. We have a freshman, Ashanvi Saxena. She's running for secretary. I'm very proud of her. The conference is also going to be at North Reading High School on April 15th. The Student Council is also doing a fundraiser. It's called Respire. So all the proceeds are going to go towards the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute. Students can pay $10 to send their teacher out of the classroom for 10 minutes. It's a play on the new program called Breathe at the high school. So teachers will be sent out by the Respired Police, and they can go have some chips in like the downstairs corner. Another thing, students are a little worried about the parking pass cost increase. Going from $40 to $200, that's a $160 increase that 16-and-a-half-year-olds or older are going to just come up with, especially when there's some seniors today who are struggling to pay for senior dues. It's a big ask. So some students are also curious, where's that money going towards? Because they heard it's going towards a parking lot monitor and a shed, where they feel like it's not really necessary that we need those things right now, where that money could be going back to our athletics and our clubs. And also some students are like, they understand that we need more money because #deficit. So they were proposing, well, what if we did it like a gradual increase every year? So maybe next year we go from 40 to 100, and then the next year after that 100 to 150, and so on.
Yeah, that is an awful noise. So students are making cards to appreciate their teachers. So we have been working together to make a card for every single teacher at the high school to show our appreciation and our thanks. We also have a sticky note wall that says teachers on it, and it says thank you, and people are just writing notes on it, and they're really kind, and they're super, super sweet. Relay for Life, which happened last Friday night, it was an event to support cancer survivors and fighters, and they broke their previous record of, I believe, $15,000 raised, but I might be wrong. I'll have to check. And the North Andover Music Association has a variety of events happening. So Friday, April 4th, the band is going to the Micah State Band Competition, 3:30 at Danvers High School. On Friday, April 4th, choir is participating in the Micah State choir competition at North Andover High School. So 6:30 is treble choir, 7:30 is S&B, Scarlet and Black Singers, and 8:30 is concert choir. And then on Tuesday, April 8th, All Town is having a band concert. And yeah.
Thank you very, very much. I just want to comment on a couple things. As far as the walkout, I love how passionate all the students have been, really standing up, showing your support, and voicing something that you believe in. So I appreciate you all taking that initiative and using your voice and your rights. So I do appreciate that. As far as the language department, I think we'll probably touch on that a little bit more. I also really love your feedback on the parking pass. Thank you for getting feedback, bringing that back to us, coming with ideas. That is really helpful and appreciative, so thank you. No? Okay.
Nothing today.
All right. All right, so let's move on to public comment. Just a reminder, public comment is to be directed to the chair. You'll have 3 minutes. Please state your name and address before making your comment, and we'll open that up.
Hello, I'm Allison Shimana. I am not a North Andover resident, but I have been an educator in the North Andover Public Schools for 18 years. I taught kindergarten at Thompson, and at the
Can you just get off of your town?
Oh, I'm from Beverly.
Thank you.
I taught kindergarten at Thompson in the ABECC until January of 2023. At that time, I suffered a health incident, and when I returned from medical leave, I took on the role of kindergarten reading interventionist, a position that I have poured my heart and soul into over the past 2.5 school years. I even enrolled in a reading specialist master's program, which I'll be graduating from on May 4th, and worked a second job to put myself through that program. On April 1st, I learned that my reading position will be eliminated, and I'll be going back to the kindergarten classroom. I'm not here tonight to garner sympathy for my reassignment, but instead to advocate for North Andover's youngest learners. For those of you who are not educators, you may not be aware of the importance of foundational skills when it comes to learning how to read, or the research that shows if these foundational skills are not solid by first grade, a student's reading difficulties will continue to snowball. At the ABECC, we welcome many students with varying skills when they start kindergarten. Some may come to us with previous school experience, knowing letters and sounds, and even reading some words. However, we also have many students who come to us with no school experience, little knowledge of letters or exposure to books, and they require a bit more instruction to help them develop these foundational skills. These are the students who are on my caseload. I provide them with Tier 2 reading intervention to support and boost their learning. Over the past 2 school years, I have worked with between 36 to 43 students a day in small groups for 30 minutes. Using the Dibbles assessment tool, I keep progress monitoring data on all of my students to make sure that I am providing them with the instruction that they need. According to the last year's end of the year Dibbles data for my caseload, 97% of my students met or exceeded the benchmark in phoneme segmentation fluency. 86.5% of my students met or exceeded the benchmark in nonsense word fluency, correct letter sounds. 89% of my students met or exceeded the benchmark in nonsense word fluency, whole words read. And 89% of my students' total composite score met or exceeded the benchmark. Looking at my data for this school year, my caseload is on a similar trajectory. I'm so proud of my students and their progress. I'm excited to send them off to first grade with the literacy skills they need to be successful. However, with the anticipated budget cuts for next year, none of this reading support will be provided to our kindergarten students. Classroom teachers will provide Tier 1 instruction for students in the classroom, but it is potentially to a class of students and uncertain support as we await the news of teaching assistant cuts. It is not realistic to expect a classroom teacher to meet the needs of these young students all alone. It needs to be a team effort, but our team is being dismantled. This is not the foundation we should be giving the students of North Andover as they start their academic experience. They deserve more. I am concerned for the future of North Andover Public Schools, for my niece and nephew who live in North Andover, and for the rest of the student population of this town that I have cared for almost 20 years. I strongly urge you to invest in the children of North Andover because the consequences of these devastating budget cuts will continue to have negative ripple effect on this entire community for years to come. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Sirtaj Sankla. I am a 6th grade student at the North Andover Middle School. Because of family and friends, I have heard of the teachers being laid off, and I was really disheartened by this because my education and my teachers matter a lot to me. So to express my disheartenment, I have written a poem to express it. Thank you. What is right? It's 2025, and for greatness we strive, but for our town, there's little hope it'll survive. Through this strife and this plight, we must do what is right. I know that it's time to join the fight. The 6 million deficit that we face has torn our town with a subtle trouble case. 40 teachers have been fired, and the town can't afford to have more teachers hired. The teachers protest for good reasons. The town can't say that this is treason. My actions, they may be bound, but heed my warning, make it sound. The town and its power, we refuse to hide and cower. For the people who've lost their jobs, important stories have been robbed. I beg of you to do what is right. I beg of you to join this fight. So now I must pay, as do my peers, as do my teachers, all of us without fear. My future, my education, a horrible future with no safe haven. I ask of you, is that the life you seek? Is that the one you dream of when you're fast asleep? So help me, save me. Let this door to goodness be unlocked by our golden key. Our key, our voice. Take my hand as we make this choice. Through the strife and this plight, we must do what is right. I know that it's time to join the fight. Will you help me find the light?
Hello, my name is Anastasia Mahon, and I'm a student at North Andover High School. Lately, well, this whole teacher thing has been very bothersome to all of us. I'm here to read to you my petition to save the North Andover teachers. We, the undersigned, urge the NAPS administration to find sustainable solutions to the current financial crisis that do not involve laying off our dedicated teachers. Our teachers are vital members of the community, and their absence would significantly reduce the quality of education and overall well-being in our schools. We believe that protecting their jobs is essential for the future of our students and community. This petition has 362 signatures, and we are not stopping there. Please reconsider.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. My name is Zahira Zawawi. I'm a resident of North Andover. I live on 1635 Osgood Street, and I'm a French teacher at the high school. I stand before you tonight to express my deep concern about the recent cuts to our district. But I will speak here more specifically about my department. Out of 9 teachers in the foreign language department at the high school, 5 have been cut, including me, including myself. Among those affected are native speakers and come from diverse backgrounds. This raises serious questions about our commitment to diversity. And we all know how much our school district values its commitment to diversity with race values. Ms. Lathrop, you read a book
Please direct
to
comments
elementary
to the chair.
students
Yeah.
called Amira's Picture Day. Thank you for that. It was about a Muslim girl celebrating Eid. Well, know that Amira is here with us at the high school. She has the right to have at least one teacher in the whole district that she could identify with. Our minority students feel a sense of belonging when they see teachers who share their linguistic and cultural background. By cutting these positions, we're taking away the opportunity for students to learn foreign languages from teachers who can actually connect with them on a personal level. The decision to eliminate the middle school language program and reassigning those middle school teachers to the high school will have long-term consequences. By doing so, we are offering our students a crash course instead of a comprehensive long-term language program. Without early exposure, students will struggle to reach AP level by graduation. As an AP French teacher, I've seen firsthand how early language education leads to academic success. Since I began teaching here at the high school since 2020, nearly every valedictorian and salutatorian was a student of mine in AP French. Furthermore, the elimination of these programs hurts our students financially. You must be wondering how. The AP exam and the CL biliteracy exams help students earn college credits, saving families thousands of dollars in college tuition. By reducing these opportunities, we're limiting actually our students' ability to save money on their college education, and we're hindering their future career prospects. These cuts are not just about reducing courses and covering the budget deficit. They're about limiting diversity in the high school and taking away opportunities for students to succeed academically and financially. As a district that values diversity and race values, we must ask ourselves, how can we claim to support diversity if we're taking steps that direct undermine it? I urge you, the superintendent and the school board, to reconsider these cuts. Our students deserve the chance to learn in a diverse environment that supports their academic and personal growth. Thank you for the extra time, and thank you all.
Hi, Allie Roberts, 31 Bridges Lane. So, I, with some other students, led the walkout last Monday, and I can tell you that that is the most energy I've ever felt at North Andover High School. There was more participation than there was in our Spirit Weeks, with a literal sea of red with the students. And I felt very encouraged by that. I personally am a member of our German program at school. So I've been taking German since my 8th grade year. I believe there was 24 kids in my 8th grade German class. And I ask you to realize that taking out that German and phasing it out is getting rid of the I in raise. It is getting rid of the inclusion. There would not be 3 languages, there would be 2. And the German program is thriving for the first time in years. Thank you.
Muy buenas noches. Soy Rebecca Melnick. I am an 18-year Spanish teacher at the middle school. I live in Methuen. And I've been watching the meetings in person and online, but this is the first time I'm speaking during public comment. I want to thank the students who spoke tonight, our poem reader, and those of you who spoke about all going on, particularly with world language. Measure twice, cut once is a quote that is attributed to avoiding error when creating with fabric or wood. It's also a proverb that goes much deeper and exemplifies what I feel may be happening here. Measure twice, cut once means to be prudent with our actions, that we must not act without due diligence, that some actions cannot be reversed and end up inflicting permanent damage. The trusted leaders of our school community did not measure twice and cut once. I could point out many examples of rash decisions that have already been made in order to fit the budget, even though the town itself has not yet voted on the budget. The one example of cutting without carefully measuring that I want to continue talking about is the elimination of the entire world language program at NAMS, which caused a terrible ripple effect on our high school programs too. To echo what's already been said, why would a district that values diversity and race choose to pull the legs out from a thriving second language and cultures program by eliminating its foundation? Students build a strong language base with us at NAMS, develop curiosity, and a love of world language, which they carry on with them to high school and beyond. After the decision was made to eliminate the world language program at the middle school, we all know 5 of 9 world language teachers at the high school were let go, and 4 of the 5 middle school teachers were reassigned there. To exemplify lack of planning, when I asked administration, because I'm the one staying at the middle school, what the plan was for me to teach, I was given this response. What this position will look like for next year will be clearer once we figure out the entire team configurations and staffing assignments. With such uncertainty about our NAM schedule and offerings, how was this decision made? Our superintendent has said time and time again that she will listen to what is important to students before making decisions and program cuts. I would like to be directed to the data that shows that middle and high school students and their families do not believe that having a world language program at the middle school is important and that deducing it at the high school is okay. If there is no such data, I think it would be more transparent to simply say that the current administration does not see the value in it. I would also like to point out, at the middle school, our program does not require additional curriculum costs and never has. For 18 years, I have seen it designed, created, and implemented completely by us, the teachers, without guidance from an additionally stipend coordinator. The mission of our North Andover Public Schools includes creating effective communicators, and I feel that our course does exactly that. And I also believe it is the NAMS course that best exemplifies Ray's values. If we truly stand by our mission and values, which I believe we do, I urge the school committee and superintendents to please rethink your current plan to eliminate this valuable program and find a way to maintain it for the best interests of all of our students. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Olivia Belarzik. I have lived on Highland View Ave, North Andover my whole life. I have been in North Andover Public Schools from the start, and I would like to say these teachers deserve better. 7th grade, I was having an emotionally hard year. In my 7th grade science teacher, Miss Jordan, was always there for me and all of her other students. I was in her class when the school had to evacuate and no one knew what happened. She was there for me when I had a panic attack. She told me everything was going to be okay, even though I could tell she was scared too. And this year, when I was struggling with grades and peers, I had 2 teachers, Mr. Jordan and Conti, help me even though they didn't have to. Adding more kids into one classroom is going to affect many kids' education. It will only make it harder on the kids and teachers and make overcrowded classrooms, making the class overwhelming. I know ever since my teachers got me into a smaller classroom size, it has made a huge difference. So all I am asking is for all the teachers' jobs to be protected. I might not know all of these teachers, but I know that these teachers work hard to help connect with all of their students. We love our teachers.
My name is Jason Waters. I live at 2125 Turnpike Street, and I was also one of the many students at the walkout. I can attest to what Ali said about the synergy of all the students that day. I took, I believe, around 263 photos that day, and each photo has the same energy and power to it. A lot of people often like to say that they're doing something for the kids. You know, you want to think about the kids when you make your decisions. So I'm glad to see that the kids here, along with myself, are telling you exactly what we want. The kids want to keep our education. We want to keep our educators. We want to attain the bonds we've made with the teachers that we love. I personally have made many connections in my years in the North Andover public school system. I've been through it my entire life. And people I've met in these schools, people that are now getting cut, have changed who I am, like as a person. Not only have they taught me valuable skills for life, but they've also taught me things you don't talk about in school, you don't exactly directly learn. In cutting these teachers, it takes away so many possible opportunities for the future of young people in this town and the future of even the adults in this town once those young people grow up. I suppose I didn't wrap this up very well, but my general idea is the students here, we've shown you what we want. We've said what we want. We're saying what we want now here tonight. We said we want on the walkout earlier, and we'll keep saying it. We want to keep our educators, and we want to make those connections.
Matthew Ruthier, 61 Brentwood Circle, North Andover. I'm coming up here tonight just to kind of have your back a little bit, okay? I support all these people, all the teachers, and everything else, but I know that all you do too as well. I know that you do. I know that you want a level services budget, but it doesn't seem like it's possible this year, and maybe it isn't. But I think that we can work together. You have a whole army of people. If we have the superintendent, the school committee, students, parents, everybody can come up with outside the box thinking. I don't know if it's possible to do a subcommittee or have some type of group that we can all work together to come up with ideas with outside the box thinking to raise money so that we have level services and beyond. Ideas like some of the things that I've heard in the past would be advertising in the schools, you know, the Sal Lapoli lunchroom, whatever. I don't know if that's even legal or possible, but those are things that we could come up with and find ways to find the funding that we need. And I think if the community as a whole is involved in doing that, we can work with you. Instead of the animosity being directed towards you, we can work together to come up with a solution. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Helen Picard, 447 Waverly Road. Your agenda tonight includes discussion of town meeting warrant articles in items 11 and 5. The warrant articles in item 11 are listed as first read with a request to suspend policy to allow for a vote on first read. I request the same consideration be made for all warrant articles you'll discuss tonight, both in agenda item 11 and in agenda item 5. This allows school committee to provide a recommendation to be included on the warrant. The warrant is an important communication tool for our community as we all engage in this democratic process that we call town meeting. The warrant is scheduled for print before the next school committee meeting. Thank you.
Sorry, I wasn't planning on crying tonight, but here we are. All right. Good evening. My name is Christine Jordan of Haverhill. I, too, am one of the 40 dedicated teachers that were let go on March 21st. Despite this, I feel more connected to the students now more than ever. The fight they have in them for their teachers is nothing short of admirable and heartwarming. The recent cuts to the North Andover Public Schools have left devastating gaps, particularly at the middle school. The elimination of the entire world language department, along with an art teacher, 2 science teachers, 2 social studies teachers, 2 ELA teachers, is deeply concerning. This leaves just 1 art teacher for over 1,000 students and only 8 teachers each for science, social studies, and ELA, and yet somehow 14 math teachers remain. Kind of seems like the math wasn't there. I think I speak for many when I ask why. What is the plan for the middle school? While other schools will undoubtedly struggle to adjust to these cuts, the middle school is left with gaps that seem impossible to fill. Is there a vision for what the academics will look like moving forward, or is the approach simply to just cut where we can and figure it out later? Because our students definitely deserve more than that. They deserve better than uncertainty. They deserve a well-rounded education, not one stripped of vital subjects. I urge you to provide clarity, a plan, and commitment to ensuring that our students, the reason why we are all here, do not bear the brunt of these decisions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We're going to move on. I appreciate, again, all the public comments that have been made, and for everybody who took the time to really, we could feel your hearts, and especially all the students. I know that takes a lot for you to come before us, so thank you. I'm going to, I've had a request to take one item out of order, and that is going to be a new business item of the overnight field trip waiver. We do have town council here to guide us through this, so I wanted to get to that item in case we had any questions for her while she is here. So we will skip to that. Do you want to talk about it?
It's at the end of your packet with new members.
Do you want me to project one of these documents that are linked here?
Okay, so this is a first reading request to suspend policy to approve the attached waivers for students traveling out of the country on overnight field trips. I believe this is requesting to suspend policy because we have upcoming trips coming for spring break, if I'm correct? Okay. Attorney O'Connor, can you walk us through exactly what these are needed for?
Sure. By way of background, the head of schools for North Andover High School, because of certain changes in typical travel that is new requirements that we haven't seen in the past, she undertook looking at our waivers. They really haven't been updated in several years, I think at least probably a decade, maybe more, and had reached out to ask me to take a look at these and basically give them a review and update them where necessary. So this is a waiver that parents primarily would be signing. There is also one for students who are 18 and older, and it's a fairly straightforward, typical type of waiver that you would see in most educational institutions that offer overseas travel for students. It alerts both the students and their parents as to the inherent risks associated with travel. They're usually the kind of worst case scenarios, and obviously travel is a great thing, and it's an important part of the curriculum here and elsewhere. And these are just the types of waivers that protect the district as they offer these kind of beyond the classroom types of services.
Do I have any questions?
Can you just give us briefly how these, excuse me, how the waivers, the new ones differ from the old ones? Like, what would be, are there substantial changes that we should be aware of?
It's overall a relatively new waiver form, and I thought it was sort of more efficient to kind of start anew and look at other policies. So one of the ones that I paid particular attention to was a policy from Boston University. I also gathered some information from Princeton University and spoke to someone at the university who had encountered, they had changed their policy as well in the past years because of certain changes that were taking place. So it's a relatively newly written policy, but it does echo in many respects what we had before. It highlights, paragraph 1 is the risk of travel, and highlights the again, that it's different in depending on the country that you travel to. It also asks and really wants parents and guardians and the students themselves to be also engaged as the school district is engaged at researching, reading, and learning about those countries that you're going to and what their customs are, what things to be aware of when you're traveling, what the rules of travel are, which are good lessons to have throughout life as we become lifelong travelers. If you continue to scroll down just a bit, there is included a medical authorization that is substantially in the same form that was in the prior North Andover policy, along with a release of liability and indemnification. This also, simply because of some unfortunate changes that have been, that we've seen in recent months. It also really, again, puts parents and students on notice that sometimes when you travel out of the country, particularly depending on what your status is as a resident, it's possible that you may have difficulty getting back in the country again. And so this is aimed at alerting parents as to the fact that we can't make those guarantees and things that we took for granted at one point in time, again, unfortunately, are no longer the case. So there's also a rescheduling and cancellation, and I believe that was in our prior policy. So there are some aspects where elements of our prior policy were just folded back into this new waiver.
And the goal is to have us vote on this tonight so that we can have anyone traveling over April vacation to sign and
That's
return
correct.
them.
Is this is signing this a requirement for going on the trip, going on any of the international trips?
I believe so, and I believe that would have been the case all along anyway. So everybody that is currently scheduled, we would ask that parents and students sign.
Yes, Ms. Barrios.
Since you're traveling.
Sorry, yeah, I have a question. For the students that are going on those trips, like I know my family signed the prior version of this form for the Ireland trip. Would all of those students, would we be re-signing all of these forms then for those trips?
Yes, we would ask that they be re-signed since it's a different, more updated form. Enjoy your trip.
Are there one or two specific changes that make the parents' or child's liability higher than it was?
It's not so much a question of their liability, it's just protecting the district, as has really always been the approach, from liability by virtue of offering these programs and these experiences.
But what are we going to be protected from now that we weren't protected from before?
Well, arguably, it's still a general release, but I think that this puts parents and students, it gives them more notice as to the types of things that they might encounter, and encourages them to, again, really take a look at what the government now has out on, immigration requirements. I listed here the different types of agencies and their publications that we would encourage parents and students to take a look at that wasn't in the other one. And I should also note that administratively, the head of schools and the superintendent's office and myself as town council have also been working on overall, travel policies, and those have been largely rewritten as well. And as well as, elements that didn't exist before with, say, chaperones. What are the types of criteria that we would utilize when selecting chaperones? And even in talking about foreign language teachers tonight, that's certainly an element of the new policies coming up as well, looking to have chaperones that might culturally be able to add to the trip through language or other means. So those aren't before you yet, but those are largely worked on.
I was going to ask that question. So we're developing are we developing a new parental consent for minors for domestic trips?
We will be as well, yeah. Yep.
Because some of this is applicable there, right?
Yes, some of it will be, yes.
So, you keep saying, you had said, this is, helps protect the district, but as I read through it, I think it's very helpful to help protect families as well, to understand the resources that they need to investigate before sending their child abroad.
I agree. It's really designed to again, alert them and get them in the habit of looking at these different things before engaging in travel.
Sorry, another question. Earlier you said head of school. Did you mean the principal?
Principal.
Yeah.
Yep.
Ms. Roberts?
Okay, I have a question for the people who are going on the upcoming trips. Are they gonna have to like get this re-signed? Is it gonna be like, or is it just an addition? Wait, sorry, brain's not working. What? So, they don't need to get a new one signed, or they need the same one signed?
So this is a new form, and this new form we would ask that it be signed prior to the trip.
One more question?
Mhm.
Would it be wise to require a notary sign, to get this notarized? Would that be advisable?
I don't believe that was part of the process before, and the maybe down the road, that could be something added to it.
I don't know, I would worry that leaves the door open for us liability-wise if somebody were, I mean, I hate to say it, but you want to know it's really the parent or guardian signing it.
Right. Yeah, I just wonder, really, the ability of people to be able to quickly turn over and if there's a cost. I suppose, actually, does the central office have?
We don't. I think that might be something to consider if that's something we want to look at in the future, but this is, it's not something we've required. I think that these new forms add in what we were looking to be able to add in. It would be a quick turnaround time for notary. We don't, town hall no longer has a notary that's available to students. We are working to have one person in central office be a notary, but that application's in process. I think it would put an undue burden and stress on the students and families at this point with the trips coming up for all of these to be notarized.
All right, well, I would like to suggest we move on that as quickly as we possibly can, just to protect ourselves.
Sure, I can look at that. I agree with, again, that's my view as well, but I will certainly look at that moving forward.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure thing.
Right. I think moving forward, if that's something we do, lots of times we have a night where if you're going on one of these trips, this is what I've done in the past when we've, places where I've worked where we required a notary, we might have a night or two. If you're going on these trips where the notaries are available at the high school, we pull in some people from the town so that, it's sort of a table of notaries to make it a little bit easier for families. So I don't disagree with you, but I think we can, with a little bit more planning, we can do it so it's supportive for everybody.
All right, so we first would need a motion to suspend the rules to be able to vote on a first read.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I think it's important we do it tonight so that we can make sure our kiddos who are planning on going on the trip in 2 weeks can go on the trip for 2 weeks.
I agree. All right, let's go ahead and vote. Mr. Hicks?
Yes.
Mr. Moskovich?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
This is voting to, I'm sorry.
To suspend the rules.
To suspend the rules, yes.
Ms. Cormier?
Yes.
And I vote yes. All right, take another motion.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to vote to accept the waivers as presented in the packet for student travel release.
Okay, do I have a second?
Seconded.
All right, any further discussion?
Thank you to the town council for making sure that our kids and our district are safe and making sure that we do this in a timely fashion.
Sure thing.
All right, let's take a vote. Mr. Hicks?
Yes.
Mr. Moskovich?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
I don't want to stop kids from going on this trip, but I am worried about our liability, to be honest. So I'm going to vote no.
Ms. Cormier?
Yes.
And I vote yes. All right. Good. Thank you
All
for
right,
being here.
thanks very much.
And for all those students going on those trips, we hope they had a fantastic time.
Madam Chair, can I ask a question just about the vote?
About
Mr. Brown's vote?
Sure.
So you voted no on that one, concerned about the liability. Is that because you're really pushing for the note to go with having them notarized? Is that, I just make sure I understand.
Yes.
Okay.
100%. I want the kids to go.
Okay.
I don't want to stop them from going, but I'm sorry, but I feel it leaves us open.
Okay, so so it would be that we should push forward as we can, like you said, to make sure that we're able to implement a policy to having them notarized.
Yes.
Okay.
I hate the fact that somebody could do it, but they couldn't.
I just wanted to understand. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, we're going to move forward. We do have a presentation by a citizen, Mr. Mark Rogers, on a special education warrant article. If you'd like to come forward and present.
Mark Rogers, 19 Trinity Court. For those of you who said articulately the challenges that we have, I have a potential solution here for part of this. There are two parts to this, and the presentation is going to be a little dry and a little detailed, but I promise at the end it'll make sense. I want to thank you for your time for letting me present my case for this warrant article. In January, investigating what I might do to help the school department with their budget. I remember that when I was on the finance committee in the early 2000s, how frustrated the school administration was over surprise special education out-of-town placements and other special education expenses. Eventually, this led to the formation of the Special Education Stabilization Fund. It seems clear that from what I've been reading in the news that these unanticipated expenses are still happening and are still putting downward pressure on our education budget. This article seeks to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer $700,000 from available funds or certified free cash to the Special Education Stabilization Fund. Since this fund is now depleted, this article is in the spirit, thank you, I should have said next slide, is in the spirit of the Select Board policy on this fund, which reads, the town shall formulate a plan to restore the fund to the identified target fund ceiling, $750,000, when the balance of the fund drops below the target fund floor, $100,000. Said funding shall come from free cash or other reserves. Next slide, please. I think it's important to understand the proposed source of funding here and why it suits funding this account. Free cash is generally thought of as made up of unanticipated revenues and unspent budgets. But there are some nuances in it that are important to understand. How we go about estimating revenues is a key part to this discussion. If the Revenue and Fixed Cost Committee uses very conservative methods to estimate revenues, some reliably repeating revenues are taken off the table for general fund use. The following slides show an analysis of one funding source, local receipts, and its impact on free cash. Next slide, please. This table forms the data for the graph on the next slide. The bolded surplus numbers are removed from the trimmed mean of $2.4 million because they are unusual years. What's important here is, on average, we consistently underestimate local receipts by around $2 million. It's clear that between $1 million and $2 million is left out of the general fund revenue estimates per year, even though it clearly repeats. Next slide, please. What's important about this slide is to see the gap between the red and blue bars that indicate underestimated revenues. Note that from 2021, our underestimations increased. And 2021 was an anomalous year. Next slide, please. This graph shows the free cash for each year. It's important to note that these figures include substantial carryover of free cash from one year to the next. In other words, free cash not created the year shown. Next slide, please. This slide illustrates the amount of free cash as represented by state-recommended free cash ranges. The state recommends that cities and towns have between 5 and 7% of their budgets as free cash, because many towns have no other savings, unlike North Andover. The red bars show the amount of free cash within the 5% range. The green is the amount between 5 and 7%. The blue represents amounts over the state recommended range. From 2021 on, the state had data on free cash carryover, which I removed to show the true annual generation of free cash. Any questions, by the way? Feel free to interrupt me at any time. This slide is a bit of an eye chart, but focus please on the bold rows. Local receipts on top, unexpended appropriations in the middle, and prior year unspent free cash. If one takes the most pessimistic of each of those columns and puts it in the final column, you would see that we would still generate $5 million in free cash. Next slide, please. This slide shows our healthy reserves. Whoops. Yes, right. This slide shows our healthy reserves. The point of showing this slide is to show that these funds earn interest for general revenue fund. Lately, large amounts of interest have been falling to free cash and are not available to general fund budgeting. There's a misspelling there. It should say OPEB. But OPEB and our main stabilization fund are long-term funds whose interest could be confidently be allocated to anticipate general fund revenues, with at least some portion of the other investment income being allocated there as well. So if I just read off script here, if we look at $6 million, $6.5 million in the stabilization fund and the OPEB trust at $6.6 million, those are long-term funds. We're not about to spend those anytime soon. So we should be able to reliably predict the interest on those based on the interest rate we get from our investments and turn that over into the general fund. But last year, $1 million of interest was not put into the general fund. And I'm not sure why, but it went to free cash. If it's in the general fund, we can spend it on labor and other town services. But if it's in free cash, it's ill-advised to do that. Next slide, please. This slide shows the recent funding of the FinCom Reserve Fund. In 21, 22, and 23, almost all of these reserves fell to free cash because they were unspent. 24 and presumably 25, all or a large portion of these funds have been used to pay some of the school deficits. But again, these are inside the budget monies. Next slide, please. This slide shows what the town manager has told me about this year's free cash and how it will be drawn down. When I mean this year's free cash generated in FY and certified in FY25, but to be spent in FY26. Or, no, I believe this money could be spent this year. So I think the school deficit money would be spent this year. Is that correct? Yes, okay. So as long as it's voted at town meeting, this will be released this year. So unless the overtime fire retro from last fall's wildfires and the snow and ice overage exceeds $1.8 million, there will be sufficient free cash to fund this warrant article. Given the Education Department's budget challenges, I urge the school committee to vote favorable action on this article and unfavorable action on Article 15, which seeks to close this fund without a proven long-run alternative. This stabilization fund has concrete rules for its use, whereas the FinCom Reserve has no allocation for special education and can be tapped by any other town department. Given the school's budget challenges, closing this fund now seems very premature, and I will be urging town meeting to vote no on Article 15 and yes on this article. It should be mentioned that this is part one of two initiatives that I intend to do at town meeting. One does not require an warrant article. I intend to make a motion on the floor of town meeting to transfer or raise and appropriate $1 million and add it to the school's budget. So I've articulated in this presentation how it could be funded. It could also be funded without raising taxes by using the FinCom Reserve Fund. Or it could be it could be used by raising or using up to the levy limit. We have $1.8 million left in the levy limit, and that $1 million could be funded from that source as well. So for those of you listening in this room, these are two solutions that if you're at town meeting, you get to vote for. Any questions that I can answer for you?
Yes. First, I'm sorry, Mr. Rogers, is it? The 9.7 that you put at the top,
Yes.
that's, I think you said newly generated, or is that the balance?
It's certified for this year, to be used this year.
How much we have.
It's how much
But
we
it's
have.
not what was generated this year.
It was not what
it's
was
the
generated
balance
this year, that's correct. It's the balance.
At this point.
And that includes fund carryovers from the prior year.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
So first, could I ask you, bring the microphone a little closer?
Oh, yeah, sure.
So the manager specifically recommended that we use the FinCom reserve instead of a special ed reserve for this purpose. And so I'm curious exactly why you disagree with her about that. And her argument, I think, had something to do with whether it's drawn from appropriation or whether it's drawn from free cash.
Well, the way
and then my understanding is that her recommendation is an implicit, maybe even explicit, understanding with the school committee that the town, through the finance committee reserve, understands that it's incurring the almost inevitable obligation to, special ed expenses increase for reasons that are impossible to prevent. So one way or another, the town has to protect itself. We're not having an argument about whether this protection will occur, but why do you prefer this method as opposed to her recommendation?
First of all, this method has been in place for quite some time and proven to be useful. It has a higher funding, but it also has very structured rules around it. The downside, I think what I agree with the town manager about is that money can be spent at any time during the year, whereas this waits for town meeting for a vote. So when you withdraw money from the stabilization fund, it has to be done at a special town meeting or at a town meeting. So it's inherently more flexible to come from the Finance Committee reserve. But we don't have a track record in using the Finance Committee reserve in this way. And there's nothing written about it. There's nothing guaranteeing you an X amount of dollars for that. And we don't even know that the Finance Committee reserve will be around that long either.
In a way, it sounds like you're suggesting not exactly bad faith on her part, but presumably in making the recommendation, she's committing herself to recommending that we always have a Finance Committee reserve.
This money in the stabilization fund is money in your bank account. It's yours to spend. The Finance Committee reserve is not.
I would disagree that it's ours to spend when there are so many rules about how much we can spend and how we can access that. I don't agree that.
I don't agree that. Well, I don't agree that.
Okay.
That's not what I
Thank
said.
you.
I didn't say that.
I'm speaking now. Thank
Sure.
you. I don't agree with going with this route. I think the town manager's proposal and what we've been doing for the past couple of years is actually smarter and gives us more flexibility. I don't know if your analysis of the numbers is correct or accurate, but it seems to be different than what the town manager has been telling us and what the current FinCom and the Revenue and Fixed Cost Committee is telling us. So I have some questions around that, but I do know one of the reasons why there is a gap is that each year when we get state aid, we don't budget with what we think we're going to get the following year. We budget with what we got the previous year, and there is always some gap there. That could be considered conservative. I think it's safe and good practice, so we inevitably will have some extra money in that way. I prefer a stabilization fund. I scratched that. I do not prefer a stabilization fund. I actually prefer a reserve, and I think one of the reasons why we have been moving away from that is stabilization funds were created a long time ago, and since then there's new Mass General Law that allows us to create reserves that gives us more flexibility, more access. I would be in favor of officially memorializing that there is a portion of the reserve, the FinCom reserve, dedicated to special ed overruns at the very minimum. I would also be in favor if there was a at the, next year or when the time is appropriate to create a special ed reserve instead of a special ed stabilization. Again, the rules are different and how you access them are different. I think that would be a better funding mechanism.
I agree with that. By the way, I agree with that.
And I have faith in our town manager and the understanding of what those monies are supposed to be used right now, and I think FinCom is on board with that, but I think we should also work towards very quickly in the next year or so to memorialize that. I just don't think that this is the proper way to do it. And I say this as a parent with a child currently on an IEP. It's not lost to me the importance of making sure our special ed department and our kids with IEPs and disabilities who need help need protections. Very much important to me as well. And that's why I want something more flexible, because these things happen quicker than sometimes town meeting can happen. And if we need to spend, and if we do need to have a special town meeting, that does cost us an exorbitant amount of money too.
May I ask how my presentation differs from what you've heard from the Revenue and Fixed Cost Committee?
I think we have free cash for some very important reasons over the planning we've done in the past couple years. We are going to be using some of that this year for overruns that we were unable to predict, and that's why they exist. Our goal is to not have those in the future. People keep talking about our levy capacity. Up until a couple years ago, we were taxing within 1% of that, and right now we structured it so that the taxpayers of North Andover wouldn't be bearing the cost of the Amazon property, as agreed upon and passed by town meeting last year or the year before when we implemented the TIF. So that's why there's that extra space. We had made that plan. It was a good plan and a logical plan, and this year we are changing that plan by tapping into some of that levy capacity so we can raise our budget an extra 4% and have the money to avoid even more disastrous layoffs. And the committee was cautious in asking for more of that because we worry about whether or not we would be able to fund ourselves next year. So we are not just thinking about this year, we are thinking about next year and years after that and making sure we can sustain ourselves in a way and not have to go through another round of what layoffs mean for this town. And you mentioned that we can do this without raising taxes. Us raising or tapping into that levy capacity is raising taxes.
Agreed.
And that is...
The Finance Committee reserve would not cause that.
Fine. But we are raising taxes this year, and we need to be cognizant of what that means for our families who live in this town as well. So I appreciate you wanting to figure out ways to better fund our schools. I very much want to as well, but I worry about this particular funding mechanism and not being able to actually leverage these funds when we need them. It puts it in a bank for future use that has very strict rules, and I just worry about that flexibility.
My understanding from my conversation with the town manager was that the rules would be reflected in her use of the Finance Committee reserve, just from my conversation with her.
Any other questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move forward with recognitions.
We have a few tonight. The first slide, this is Stacy Birdsell and Rebecca Duchesnay from middle school. They hosted an event to showcase the learning their students underwent with the book A Single Shard. These students signed up to read this book. They learned about Korean culture and history. They met once a week after school, and then they prepared for a field trip to the Fine Arts Museum in Boston. It was a huge success for both our students and staff, and we applaud these teachers for their innovation, their initiative, and for going above and beyond to engage their readers. And that's some of their pictures from their field trip. We also had geography night at NAMS. It was on Tuesday, March 25th. They celebrated and they learned about geography and multiculturalism in a family-friendly way. There were games, there was cultural performances, the Earth View inflatable globe, family multicultural displays, giant maps, and more. And this is some pictures from geography night. Our LPAC, which is our English Learner Parent Advisory Council, they met last week at the Stevens Memorial Library. The ESL teacher team welcomed the families to solicit feedback about what they loved about North Andover Public Schools and what they still think they needed from our community for their students to thrive. We want to thank our ESL team and the North Andover High School students from the Spanish Honor Society for helping with this amazing event, and listed there are our teachers who participated in some of the activities from the night. To give recognition to our assistant principal at North Andover High School, Lynn Grantham. She presented at the New England Educational Research Organization conference last week. Her research centered around the therapeutic and restorative approaches to dysregulation, implementing a pathway to problem-solving intervention to keep students safe, engaged, and in class. Congratulations, Lynn. This is part of her work for her doctorate program. North Andover Guidance Department had a series of events. They sent some juniors to the NAC College Fair in Boston last week. Merrimack College had an accepted students event for our seniors who were accepted at Merrimack, Go Warriors. And then After Dark, they had an After Dark session where 3 of our current After Dark students shared some of their experiences with the program that they have had. The North Andover Historical Society had several former North Andover Middle School students who are under the leadership of Mr. McGravy. We've heard about Mr. McGravy and some of the work he does with his students. They teamed up to create a new exhibit focusing on William Sims Jr., an Andover, but now North Andover resident and Massachusetts representative who provided a pivotal vote in favor of the ratification of the Constitution. This exhibit is going to open up Saturday, April 5th at the Parson Barnard House from 11 to 2. And this project was funded from a grant that they received from the North Andover Cultural Council. A couple of folks there. And then yesterday we celebrated Teaching Assistant Appreciation Day. We want to thank our teaching assistants for their contributions. We are truly grateful for all you do. Thank you to our teaching assistants. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. Do you want to do this in the superintendent?
Yes.
Okay. Yep. All right, so roundtable reports. Anything that our committee members would like to add?
Just want to note, I had the opportunity to volunteer and have my daughter participate in the chess tournament at Sargent School on the 21st, and it was amazing to see those students play chess. There was a 5-year-old playing chess. It was all of like the focus and dedication and what these students have learned during this chess program was extremely impressive.
Thank you. Anything else anybody would like to add?
I do. I'm just looking for I have to go into my calendar and make sure I say it correctly, otherwise Mr. Nelson will be upset with me. I believe it's Tuesday. Yes. Next Tuesday is the town-wide band extravaganza galore at the high school, where all the bands, 6th grade to high school, and hopefully maybe the drum ensemble or some other awesome high school things all play. And then my favorite Eagle Summit March performance with everybody at the end. So head on down to that to hear all of our band kids perform.
All right. I think we also had MCAS this week.
We had MCAS, yes. We have a few.
You're going to get to that?
Yep.
Okay.
Let's see. You just mentioned the town band. On April 4th, the MICCA Festival is happening. April 29th is our kindergarten night at NAMS. That's for all of our incoming kindergarten families. It's a night where you gather at North Andover Middle School and have an opportunity to hear a little bit about your kindergarten experience for your student. We have a few pasta paloozas or pasta nights coming up. I know one that was sent my way was on April 9th for Franklin School. And the Franklin School also has their variety show coming up on April 16th. And on Wednesday, April 9th, North Andover Middle School is helping to support the Andrew Hardy Mito Classic. And they're looking for everyone to participate in that. All of our schools are participating in MCAS. The students are doing a great job. Some of the principals wanted to point out our 3rd grade students who this was their first time ever taking MCAS, and they showed a lot of persistence, stamina during the test, and really gave it their all, and so we appreciate that. But we know that this has been it's never easy taking MCAS, and we appreciate everything that everyone is doing and some of the sharing and the fluctuating in schedules. And then we have spring break coming up April 21st to 25th. Also, just want to point out that the North Andover Parent Resource Network, they had a roundtable discussion about anxiety and depression. If you look at their Facebook page or their Instagram, that is up and able for you to view if you weren't able to see it. I would encourage that. It's also on CAM on Monday night at 8 p.m.
Thank you.
Welcome.
All right. That's all for community events?
That's all I have.
All right, great. A lot going on. All right, we also had a community chat recently.
We did.
You wanna touch on
Saturday,
that?
Sure. Saturday, March 29th, Mr. Moskovich and myself hosted a community chat. I appreciate and want to thank everybody that showed up. We had a pretty spirited group of about, 10 or 12 community members who had a lot of good things to say. I just want to summarize the discussion for our purposes here. I would say that the most important thing, or the most common thing we heard, was that people would really like better communications in written form as well as verbal. And I know that for us up here, we say things often and repeatedly, but amazingly, or maybe not amazingly, sometimes the message doesn't get out. And so the folks were saying, you may have said it, and we looked at each other and said, we've said it like 3, 4, or 5 times, but people still don't hear it. So perhaps additional written communications would be helpful. That was a big part of what we heard.
Yeah, and I'm just going to comment on that. We
Sure.
have been trying to put all correspondence onto the website that has gone out to families, so for some reason it gets missed in your inbox.
Or your backpack or whatever.
Yeah, go to the school website. We're trying to get them all posted on there.
Perfect. I think
What,
that.
the communication in or the communication out?
The communication that's going out
From any of us?
from the
Oh, from the
superintendent.
superintendent.
Yeah, so anything from the
But
school
not
department.
necessarily from those of us that might choose to answer.
No,
We're not talking about emails, so we're talking about her letters to the community.
right.
Okay. And I think that perhaps I think that's great. I mean, one of the things that was mentioned was, please don't, more or less quoting, please don't force us to read all the minutes, which I can certainly relate to, having read all the minutes. Anyway, I think it also, part of the discussion, and I think everybody in the room pretty much agreed, right, that, and we need to say it again, that we, I'll speak for myself, hate what's going on here, but it's making the best of a really bad situation. And I think people need to understand again and again that we all feel, again, I can't speak for everybody, but it's certainly myself, and I think it wouldn't be too big a stretch to think that my colleagues feel the same way. It is where we're at. Folks made comments about, there were a lot of very specific things which I won't repeat here. Trying to summarize what we heard, there were a couple of people were concerned about, or asked if we could have some more communications regarding bus situations. If there are changes, whatever, that we could, suggested we could do a better job of getting that information out. Let's see, I think, there was, again, a lot of specific issues were raised about not getting certain emails, getting certain emails, so maybe we can just take some time to, if possible, to make sure that our lists are accurate and we're not getting bounce backs and things like that, because people are insisting they're not, some people were insisting in the room they weren't receiving emails they expected they should receive. That's pretty much what I've got, unless you want to add.
So I have 2 things to add to that. One of them was, I'm trying to think of a tactful way to say this, but people felt that in our official communications, we are reluctant to just say the bad news. They said, we'd really appreciate it if it's bad news, just tell us. Now, I'm not saying whether that's accurate, but that is their perception. They wish we'd just be more straightforward about it. And the other comment is something that I've been worrying about, that we tend to debate issues between ourselves. We usually agree, and we tend not to repeat to our colleagues what we know they already understand, which makes sense. But in the process, there's never really a time that we are explaining why we do things. because like if we all agree, why would we bother harassing each other? But the result is that people don't come away not realizing why we did what we did. So in the context of this discussion, people basically said, why did you do what we did? And both of us, as you know, as it happens, we tend to be in agreement, as we sort of laid out why we did. And I think people were surprised. It's not necessarily that they agreed with us, but I think they were sort of relieved to realize that behind these events, which they were displeased with, and as David said, we are too, we had thought about the least worst, excuse my elegant grammar, but what's the least worst solution? How do we, given the hand that's dealt to us, what is the way forward for us to get the best result that's actually feasible? And we don't actually communicate that. And I think that some way that we can articulate not just what I need to persuade, let's say, poor Mr. Brown, to stop being misinformed and, you know, adopt my wiser course, but just so we repeat, even though everybody at the table already knows, why did we do this? What was the rationale and how did this come about? I think that would be really helpful. And I'm not sure, now, of course, if we just say it here is probably not enough. Maybe, Madam Chairman, for you from time to time to write a general, just as the superintendent does, write a note to parents laying out the rationale behind why the school committee did what it did and why we think another course, while superficially better, would actually lead to poorer results.
Okay, thank you.
And there's one thing I forgot to mention. This came from a couple of people, and is actually, I was at the last two chats, so this was raised in both of them. I think folks would like to see a little more visibility when it's possible into what our sort of 2-3 year plan is. And I know that that's the superintendent's primary responsibility, and it's part of something that we do. But I think, I don't know, maybe we can, when time permits, we can put a little bit something like that on the website as well. Would probably be useful. Okay?
Thank you. All right, we do have 2 more school committee chats scheduled coming up. Ms. Corinne, you want to touch on those?
Yes, so the next 2 school committee chats, we have one on April 10th, which is a Thursday from 6:30 to 8. That is Mr. Hicks and myself. And then we have one on May 8th, which is Mr. Hicks and Ms. Koenig from 6:30 to 8 again. I don't have the locations on that yet, but I'm sure Michelle will get those out and posted. So
And
people
I know that the principals have been really good at putting that into their weekly bulletin, so people can keep the eye out on those, so be able to get those locations. I will note May 8th was originally supposed to be a school committee meeting, so while we're on that topic, I'll just note that that is being changed to May 1st. So, but talk about that more. All right, moving on, we're going to go into the superintendent updates.
Thank you. I'd also like to make a couple comments before I get into superintendent updates. I just want to recognize what I think everybody has already said here tonight, that the decisions that we're making are not easy. There's nothing joyful about them, and they are hard, they are impactful, they impact our lives, they impact our sense of community. I think that I can say that I don't believe anybody here thinks it's just about numbers and dollars when making these challenging, difficult decisions. I wrote about that in our notes and our letters home, but I felt as though I know people are watching school committee, and here's an opportunity to share that again, that everybody here, myself, and I can speak for myself, I am, really understands the impacts that this have on our community. On March 21st, we delivered layoffs to our teachers. And that was a challenging time for everyone. It was challenging for our teachers, for our staff, for our administrators, and for the students. I think I've shared in letters that we plan to do that towards the end of the day, understanding and recognizing that didn't happen in all circumstances. I can say emphatically it did not happen in front of students in their classrooms, but the impact on the students, the impact on their teachers, did affect students within the classroom, and for that we're are very reflective of that, which is why we made changes moving forward. I listen to comments, and I respect and understand, and I agree with the thoughts of that we're losing some of our diversity in the world language program in the high school, and that we have native language speakers. I do want to say that when we make cuts like this, we follow the collective bargaining agreement. It's called, we typically refer to that as the CBA. There are rules in how we make cuts that are part of what we bargain to do. Nobody here would choose to take that piece out of the high school, but we do have to follow those rules. That's why there are bargain, there are contracts, and that's how those decisions were made. It wasn't in an effort to decrease diversity in our high school in any way. I want to thank our students for being here tonight, for the people that are getting up and speaking. You are the voice. You are the voice of today. You are the voice of tomorrow. You are the future. I'm proud of you for the fact that you care so deeply about your education, so deeply about the connections that you have made with your teachers, and that you're here and that you rallied together in a very short amount of time. You showed this community that you have voice, and that your voice matters. And you did it in a way that was mature and respectful and responsible. And there's not one person at this table, or I think in this community, that is not proud of you, and just are so happy that you are our future. We know that there are lots of challenges ahead of us, and that there are things we have to get through, but you are remarkable people, and we're so thrilled that you are our future. I want to thank our administrators for working with the students to be able to have a peaceful walkout, to be able to support our students, to find a way to do that safely for their voice. I want to thank the North Andover Police Department who supported us during that day. It was a day that, while we are going through a very challenging time as a community, it was a day that North Andover showed its pride in who we are as a community. And then I just want to recognize that we did listen. We will continue to listen and see if there are things that we can change. I don't know. I have been doing this, I have said, for a long time. I've been an educator for over 35 years. And while I have unfortunately had to lay people off in the past, and I have worked in this town in the past when we had large layoffs, what we went through was very challenging. And there aren't many educators that can say they have laid off 40 people in one day. And there are bound to be things that we learn from those experiences. It is why we tried to minimize the impact on our community. We tried to minimize the impact on our students. So when our teachers this week found out if their position was being changed, that was sent via email. And that's something we have articulated to them and to you as well. Not all of our staff yet know where they will be teaching in the fall. There are still some areas that we have yet to determine. Special education, our reading support, our ESL support, and some of our specialists. As we get our students into the schools, we'll be able to determine that. And our teaching assistants, they will find their out where they're teaching later this spring. So I just wanted to make a couple comments before we move forward into the presentation. All right, so the first thing I want to talk to you about is April 18th. April 18th is Good Friday. North Andover has, it appears as though we have many staff members who participate in Good Friday activities, and we are becoming, we have 90 absences already planned for April 18th, which is a concern in terms of our ability to keep students safe and well-educated in their classrooms. We do have an emergency closing policy in school committee policy handbook that gives the superintendent the ability to either shorten the school day or close school if I believe that we cannot keep the students safe or it may result in inadequate supervision. I wanted to be upfront with the school committee and let you know that I am looking towards potentially making that a half day. I'm going to send out some communication to North Andover Teachers Association, PAs as well, and let them know. I'm wondering if we had a half day of school, if they would be able to meet their religious obligations in the afternoon. And if that isn't something that's acceptable, we may have to look at potentially canceling school on that day because we don't have the substitutes to cover that.
Which would mean one extra day in June.
Which would mean one extra day in June. I'm certainly can look at the different areas. It may be that some schools are covered well and some schools are not covered well, and it may not impact all of our schools in the district if we have to close that day. If we do move to a half day, I have reached out to Mr. Galante to see if he would be able to have community programs in the afternoon for folks that were planning on that as being a full day. But I did want to give you a heads up on that.
Is that number of absences typical for Good Friday? 90? Is that?
We have been running high. I know last year we were in a similar situation. I wasn't as personal to it because it wasn't my job to maintain that as much. But it does seem to me that that has been an issue in the past as well.
So is this something we're going to want to consider when we look at next year's school calendar?
I would recommend that we look at next year's school calendar and seeing as though this is a holiday that is seems to be well observed by our staff, perhaps consider Good Friday as being a half day or no school day.
Do we also see a high number of absence of students on that day for religious observance?
That is a very good question. I don't have data on that, but I could try to find some.
If we have it as a half day, we're still able to serve lunch, and therefore we're still able to count it as a school day. We would not need to add a day to the end of the year.
Correct. I would keep it like the half day before Thanksgiving recess.
And when will we know for sure the action?
I'm going to get something out to our staff tomorrow, and then we'll make a decision by midweek next week.
Okay. Any other questions on that?
Okay.
Thank you.
The other thing I want to bring to your attention is that we have slightly altered the timeline. It should be in your packet. It's not linked there, but it's in your packet for the Franklin Elementary School principal search. As I said, we're always willing to listen and learn from our mistakes. And when we were meeting with the Kittredge community a couple weeks ago, we realized that some of those families will be moving to Franklin School. Those families may want to have an opportunity to participate in the Franklin School search for a new principal. So we're altering this timeline so that once they find out if they're attending Franklin School, those families will have an opportunity to join the search committee and be part of that.
What was the original date for the process ending?
The date, is it the same?
It's about a week later.
It's about a week later.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So yeah, I think it was going to end around May 15th, and now it's ending around May 22nd.
Selfishly, Superintendent Lathrop, has the time for some of these meetings been set? Yeah, I know the days are here. Have the times been set
The
yet?
times have not set, but we typically interview after school hours. So we just did high school principal search interviews, and we started those around 5:15.
Okay, just trying to get my own schedule
Yes.
in order. All right, thank you.
Good question. Okay, I'm going to share some budget impacts with you and then go over the Kittredge School timeline and the transition plan. So again, this is just a slide of where we are with our budget. We've all seen this. I just leave it there just because it's part of the process. So in terms of budget impacts, at the elementary school, we had 8 general education. So these are positions that we cut. We cut 8 general education positions and specialists. We cut 1 music, 1 library, 1 art, 1 PE, and 1.5 reading positions. In the middle school, there were 4 world language positions, 4 general education positions, and the specialists, there was 1 art and 2 instructional coaches.
Could I just ask, you cut particular positions, actually you cut, but what, does that mean that that position is gone or that particular person is laid off and then somebody else may fill that position when
Yeah, a really good question. So there are going to be less general education teaching positions in the elementary because we're closing an elementary school. So those positions are eliminated. In terms of...
well, the world language positions are, Is
Yes.
there, will
So in the
some of
middle
them be
school,
refilled
not
by
at the
some?
middle school. The middle
Sorry?
school, not at the
Not
middle
the middle
school. The
school.
middle school lost 4 world language positions. But in terms of, I think we heard tonight, things like English teachers, 2 less positions, but we have instructional coaches that we have an ELA instructional coach, so that ELA instructional coach will go back into the teaching position, so that English position that isn't cut. That person did lose their position, but that position of English will still be taught at the middle school.
Right. And is that because instructional coaches are on the same bargaining, the same
Instructional
contract?
coaches are part of the
same
Unit A
bargaining
bargaining unit.
So we have to follow those rules about transfers and length of service and
Correct.
certification and all those things?
Correct.
Thank
And
you.
then there are other positions, like perhaps a science position that was cut. All of our middle school staff have a variety of different certifications. Some middle school staff will be moved to something else within that building under the purview of their principal. That is information that we have not been able to share yet because some of those moves are still happening. So we are looking at all of the certification of all of our teachers in the middle school and what they are able to teach. So that's why that information isn't 100% accurate when you hear 2 less English or 2 less science positions. We are moving people into those positions from the existing staff that we have.
So did you say the instructional coaches'
Bless you.
positions will or will definitely be eliminated or might be revived as you transfer?
They will definitely be eliminated, and there is 1 ELA coach and there's 1 math coach, so they will move into
Those people.
into those people's positions.
Will there be some sort of replacement coaching when the positions are not filled? No. Okay.
No, we are refilling our curriculum coordinators at the district level to be able to support our teachers that we have left vacant
3 of
this
them,
year.
Eventually.
Correct.
Right.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, one more question about the NAMs. So just so I understand, right, that the impact of this, do we change, as we heard tonight? Are we, offering fewer languages, offering fewer
Have a slide
classes?
for that.
You have a slide for that?
I have a slide for that.
Okay, great, thank you.
At the high school, we have 1 North Andover High School world language position that was cut because those 4 from the middle school are moving to the high school. 1 science, 1 history, and 1 English. In terms of specialist, 1 PE, 1 music, and 1 business teacher. System-wide, we cut 1 nurse, 2 BCBAs, and 1 administrative assistant from the central office. In terms of elementary, what that looks like, what are the impacts in the elementary? The impact is closing 1 elementary school. But I also put the impact of class size here. You'll see our class size ranges. It looks to me like anywhere from 15, is that right? No, 18 to 24. One of the classes that we had, if you look at Sergeant School Grade 3, originally we had proposed 5 teachers there. That put all of those 5 teachers at 25. We made some hard decisions and reallocated a teacher back to that position in order to bring those numbers down a little bit. Any questions? Okay. In terms of North Andover Middle School, we'll no longer have world language classes in grade 8. We will continue to offer a world cultures course, which will focus on Spanish. It is not a direct language instruction class. I don't want to give anybody the impression that it is. Things that we still, in terms of the schedule, the teams and the schedules will need to be adjusted. Things that we are still determining are what class size will look like and what exactly related arts will be offered. Yes?
So if world language isn't going to be offered in the middle school 8th grade, sorry, that means they're going to go into high school with no prior knowledge. So are those AP courses still going to be available? Because I don't know if I don't know how fast they can advance without that extra year prior knowledge, you know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. Having been a student who did not have world language in 8th grade, but started Spanish in high school, I can say I effectively made it to AP Spanish. But I understand that I shared this story with the chair of the World Language Department. I was at a little bit of a disadvantage as a freshman in high school because some of my peers had 8th grade, went to a school where they had language. It doesn't mean that it can't be attained, though. But it still will be offered.
Are the language requirements for graduating in the high school going to be looked at, or?
I'm going to get to the high school slide.
Okay, sorry.
So what are the languages that will, what languages will be taught at the high school then?
So at the high school, current 9th, 10th, and 11th grade students who are studying German will have the opportunity to take German as a world language through 12th grade. So anyone who's currently in 9th grade taking German, they will support that through 12th grade. But starting in FY26, only French and Spanish will be offered to our 9th graders. So French and Spanish. Other impacts is that there will be fewer electives in all areas at the high school.
So sorry, just for clarity, does that mean there's no, what does that mean in terms of, like, for example, could someone start German in 10th, or is the
No.
German is gone?
German will be phased out.
Okay.
So only the students who are currently in 9th grade
Will be
and
continuing.
10th and 11th, they will continue their journey of German. But new students entering North Andover High School won't have the opportunity to take German. And if you didn't take it in 9th grade, you can't take it in
Got it.
10th grade.
Thank you.
So that means they're going to keep like AP German.
AP German will be available for anybody that's currently in the German program.
Okay.
Those good questions. You're speaking for your people. Don't apologize.
Oh.
Somebody at home's asking the same question.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? Okay. I shared this slide in the past. This is athletics. This is the same slide I shared with you last week or 2 weeks ago. There's a $20,000 reduction in athletics, and these are the same impacts. I kept in the slide again for Scarlet Knight Academy. They have a 10%, it was 10%, $10,000 reduction, and these are the same impacts for Scarlet Knight Academy. That is really the impacts to the budget that I have. I'm happy to answer questions about that before I move into the transition timeline for elementary school.
So just so make sure everybody's on the same page, we're not going to know the full impact on programming until some more adjustments have been made.
Correct. We still need to make a few more adjustments, and I have written this in an email to parents, so I will share it publicly here as well. We have heard you about world language. We have heard the importance of it to this community, to our students, to our staff. We are re-looking at that the same way that we looked at class size because we heard you. And we are trying to see if there is an opportunity to add something back to the middle school and something back to the high school. I will say exactly what I said in my emails. When you add something back, you have to take something away. There isn't any more money. It means a reduction someplace else, but we are listening, we are hearing what you value, and we are going back and looking at that. So we may be able to make some other recommendations, but again, it's making a choice.
Sorry.
It's okay.
So if we get the level services budget from the town, then none of these cuts will have to be made, or will these cuts still be made for the next school year?
If there is money that is added back to the school department, then we will have to evaluate what kinds of money comes into the school budget and what we think we would want to what we would want to spend that money on. So I think that's a further conversation. I'm not going to speculate on money that I don't have yet.
I just, Superintendent Lathrop, so I believe you answered my question. I just wanted to say, what were you getting the most feedback on so far? But is it world languages? Is really the
World
impact
language has been a very, I've received a lot of feedback from students, from alumni, from parents, from staff, in terms of world language.
And you might not be able to talk about this yet, but absolutely, there's a trade-off, like you said, for all of this. trade-offs that you're considering that you could bring up and discuss? Because if we put something back in, something else has to go. We got to be
Not
really
at this
clear,
point.
but not ready to talk about it yet. But there will be, if we do this, then something else has to go.
Right.
So
It requires a lot of time. I'm going to sort of maybe go back to some of the things that you heard in community chat and some other things. I'm trying to be as responsive as I can to answering everybody's emails. I will say, world language, I understand. I know what it means when you're trying to get your point across and there's something you want to say. A form letter was established. I received that form letter from students and alumni, probably upwards to 20 to 40 to 50 to 60 of them. And that tells me it's important. I am trying to reply to all of those, but as I reply to all of those, it takes time away from figuring out what we're going to do in order to be able to respond to some of those kinds of things. I think all of us here, I've spoke about it, I think it was at the tri-board meeting, the need for a strategic plan, a need for a long-range plan in North Andover. That's not going to happen this month. It's not going to happen next month. I'll be honest with you. We have a serious situation. That is something, though, that when we get through this budget and town meeting and know where we are, that as a community, we need to be able to move forward to be able to do. So I guess I'm saying that this is a very delicate situation, and it takes a lot of time. People want to know things right away. I get that. I like to know things right away. I'm the person that goes to the end of the book to see how it figures out. I just like doing that. Not everybody does, but I like to know how the book is going to end as I'm reading it, lots of times. But we can't divulge all of the information in a way that everybody wants to hear it because it impacts so many people. Every piece of information impacts the community. I know right now, as we all sit here, probably some of the slides that I have just presented are being posted on social media without context, and then that is yet another layer of having to explain certain situations. It's not a bad thing. I'm just saying that everything that we say and do has an impact. That's why I'm not able to release every bit of information as quickly as I believe people would like it, because I have to think about who that might impact when that bit of information is released.
thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Any other questions or impacts of the budget? Okay, so moving on, I just want to talk a little bit about the elementary transition timeline. Ms. Ando and I had the opportunity to do a Zoom meeting with the Kittredge School PTO. They held a community meeting. I want to thank the PTO president and Mr. Cushing and the Kittredge families. I think there was well over 80 or 90 families that participated that evening to answer some questions. This is just a little bit of the transition timeline that we've laid out. As you know, March 21st, our staff was notified. On March 31st, the Kittredge teachers learned of their new positions, so all of our teachers that are general education teachers at Kittredge School know where they're teaching next year. On April 18th, our families are going to find out their student assignment and their transportation eligibility. That will affect the students who are currently in Kittredge and the students who are at ABECC who would have gone to Kittredge School. They will also get a letter on April 18th about where their new home school will be. In late April, early May, our principals of the receiving schools will be introducing themselves, getting to know students, getting to know families. I'll talk a little bit about that transition team in a minute. We will be gathering input from our Kittredge staff for class placement. We'll be facilitating school tours. We'll have meet and greet events. That will be June and April. And then, just as we have in the past, August 18th, all of our class placements for all of our students will be made available district-wide. Just to give a little bit more information, so on April 18th, the school assignments will go out via school messenger to the families. They'll find out their school assignment and their bus eligibility. If families are not at Kittredge, if families are not happy with the request, or if there's a reason why they'd like to request something else, they'll be provided with a Google form for an out-of-neighborhood request, and that will be based on, Ms. Ando will be handling those, and it will be based on busing. It will be based on enrollment and whether or not you need busing, because busing most likely will not be available if you're asking for an out-of-district placement.
Superintendent Lathrop, just to clarify, the school assignments that go out on the 18th, those are only for current Kittredge students,
Thank you very
right?
much.
Not the rest
Current
of us?
Kittredge students
Yeah,
and
only.
kindergarten students who would have been Kittredge students.
But not the rest of us. We're waiting to the normal
You're waiting till
timeline that would
August
always
18th.
happen.
Yep.
Okay.
We like to do things on the 18th. We have developed a transition committee. It's being chaired by Michelle O'Leary. Oh, Michelle has 2 L's in her name. I'm so used to Michelle McHugh. Michelle O'Leary is the Director of Social Emotional Learning. She's chairing that along with Carol Larkham, who's one of our Directors of Curriculum. The committee will include parents, staff, and administration. Soon the current families and staff will be receiving an email from the 2 chairs about ways that they can participate in that committee. Some of the things that committee will be doing is organizing the visiting days, the tours, the welcome activities, and lots of others, parts of that.
When you say parents, will that just be Kittredge parents, or will it also include parents to welcome the incoming
It will
students?
also include parents to welcome the incoming students. So that will be, once the April 18th assignments are out, then we will be looking for all schools to be able to participate in this transition committee. Good question.
This is transition, we envision this maybe going into the early part of the next school year.
Summer
not
into the early
like-
part of next
Not
year.
the first day of school, we got there, we're done, but into the beginning of the school year where we might need some continued support for our
Correct.
families. Thank you.
Yep, and we talked to the families at Kittredge School about understanding that, well, we'll have some very planned activities for all kids, so there'll be a move-up day, so all kids will have an opportunity to take a bus, to move up to the school that they're going to see. We also understand that some students need something a little bit different, so there are opportunities if a student needs to have a small tour or a private tour. The counselors work closely with counselors from each school, so there's lots of flexibilities to meet the needs of our students.
Ms. Cormier, did you have-
Chairwoman Koenig. So I have a comment and a question, and if it's not appropriate at this time, feel free to tell me no, or if you want to do it another meeting, tell me no. But it's related to the budget. I'm concerned about the town passing 68.2 million, which is the budget that we put forward. I fully believe in it. I think that is what we should go forward with. It's the right budget, but I am concerned with all of, honestly, the negativity, the other options that are getting thrown onto the table, that there's going to be confusion for all of us as citizens going to town meeting on the path forward. And I'm just kind of putting this out here now for us to think about, how do we really clarify that path to what do people need to do to pass the 68.2 million? Because we have to get that. If we do not, what happens? What happens is we revert back to the budget for this year, which is 10% less. There is no other option. It's 10% less if we do 9.89 less than we have now. And that is what's devastating. So if we don't have all of this energy, all of this passion towards getting that $68.2 million passed, that's where devastation is going to happen. And
So, and I think I can say, I mean, we're planning on some North Andover CAM activity.
Yes, yep.
Which will be able to address a lot of questions that'll be on a continuous loop that people can watch and get questions answered. So I think those will be helpful in getting information out.
I have a different, I could be wrong. I share your concern, and I'm trying to line up people to come to town meeting to prevent what you're worried about. My understanding, or misunderstanding, is that the budget discussion will begin with a motion by the Finance Committee, which will include 68.2 million. That is subject to amendment.
Oh, I
But if
don't want to get
amendments-
into the whole discussion of it now. I think we just
Well,
kind of want to
but-
talk about what the plan is, because this isn't an agenda.
I think it's
I
an
think that we're
important
all-
point, though.
I think there's more people that would like to know about it, that it's coming up for discussion, so that they can be prepared.
Right, but what I'm
'Cause
saying
it
is
is important
that
information.
I think the default, if every motion amendment fails, 68.2 will be the budget. It's not like if you vote for an override and it doesn't pass. That is the default position. Somebody has to pass an amendment to change it, either to reduce it or to increase it. That's my understanding. I still think we should be prepared. I think Ms. Kenning's right, or Ms. Cormier's right. But
I'm not
I don't
disagreeing.
think that the fall, you're worried that by doing nothing, it'll wind up with an
It goes to
even
6
worse.
months. My
I
understanding is
think
goes-
that's not right, but we should check.
No, it is.
No, it is right. It goes
If you
back
don't
to-
pass a budget,
Right, but
that's
it-
what happens.
It goes to this year's budget, which is 10% less.
Yes,
than
but I think it's accurate that it's not like there's a separate school budget item. It's
Correct.
part of the omnibus budget.
Correct.
So the whole omnibus budget would have to fail.
Correct.
Right, for that
That's my
scenario
understanding.
to.
But with all of the, and again, it doesn't have to get discussed, I'm just bringing it up because it relates to the budget. That there's so much information, there's so much criticism, there's so much animosity towards this. And I think it's how do we put all of this positive energy and passion for our students to make sure that we at least get that 68.2 million. Like that, like we have, that laser focus needs to be on getting that at least that 68.2 million. And
So I guess I look at this two ways. One, I mean, we do have North Andover CAM where we can work on getting a lot of the information out. The other thing we consider is on our May first meeting, that we make that a priority discussion.
Yeah, I would be very supportive of that, and we can all bring our thoughts together and be on an agenda item and all that.
And that way, if members of the public, can be more present and aware and either hear or watching, that we can make sure to have a very thorough discussion on that. Okay. Mhm.
That's it for me.
Oh, okay.
Right? Yeah, that's just timeline, but we already talked about.
All right. Any questions on any of that? Okay. All right. We're going to go into the chair updates. We have discussion. We talked about we have 2 budget liaisons that we're meeting to talk about how we want the budget presented to the school committee in the future and what information we want, how often we want that information presented. So if we want, do you have a brief update on that?
Yeah, yes, we did have our first meeting. I think we got to know each other, we need to get a little bit more focused than we were. The goals, I believe the goals we identified was, like you just said, a better reporting mechanism, how often and what would be in it is one of our goals. A second goal would be policy enforcement on how accounts are handled and making sure we understand the definition of those accounts and who has authority. Those are the two main goals that we reached agreement on.
Well,
So
I think
there's-
when we're
yeah.
talking, and I mean, anybody can jump in, when we're talking about policy, one, we need to evaluate what's in our purview as a school committee, right? Because
Right.
there's certain policies that are the responsibility of the administration, and there's certain responsibilities that are ours. So looking at our current policy of what our authority is over versus
Yeah.
what.
That took that
Do
as
you
my own.
understand what I'm
Yes,
saying?
I do. and
So that
took-
we're not crossing boundaries of.
Right, and so I kind of took on that action item myself to figure
Okay.
that out, right? Where are the lines between what school committee should know and or what school committee should be involved with versus not?
Right. And I think we
Well-
talked about that, I think it was in the minutes that we just approved, that this isn't a micromanaging
Right.
position as much as we need to know when the superintendent brings a budget before us and a budget update, what does that need to look like? What should be in there and how often should that be presented to us to make sure that we're doing our due diligence as stewards of the budget?
Well, there's a very important issue here. When I first joined the school committee, I made some comment about the possible changes in the budget, and the then superintendent rebuked me and said, the school committee doesn't discuss this. If that's what you want, you should read the policies. So I did. The policies are very explicit. They say that the categories of the budget items, are supposed to be mutually agreed by the school committee and the superintendent. In effect, the other position is kind of like the debate in Congress about whether we appropriate to the president one sum of money, $5 trillion, spend it as you want, or whether there's some kind of control. And that's the same issue here. We don't want to micromanage, but probably saying, here's 68.2 million, spend it however you want, is probably not enough. And the policy is very clear. We need to think through what are the boundaries, how much flexibility, and it should be a lot, does the superintendent have, and in what areas does she need to come to the school committee for a transfer?
Well, and I think
Yeah.
that's actually think that is very clear, and that's why they do come to us when transfers need to be made for our approval.
That's why when she came and asked for a transfer whenever it was, September, I remarked that was a joyous day.
Right.
Nobody else really responded to that, but it showed a fundamental shift that we are in fact going to move. But we have to actually agree, and the problem is nobody's fault. The staff is working very well and very hard and still trying to make sure we actually know what we're likely to spend, so they haven't had the time they need to begin the discussion. What I suggested was that we let the budget director come up with a first suggestion, and then we can discuss it and hopefully come to agreement to come before the school committee.
I guess I'm confused on what you're saying. A first suggestion on how to present it
in
to us?
effect, how do you define the budget categories, the budget items? This is kind of like...
I don't understand why we need to change those.
Because we have never, certainly in my time here, we've never established what they are. This is the
We
equivalent...
have cost centers established right now.
No, we've not had a vote of the school committee, and that's what the policies say.
Well, sir, we haven't voted to change them. That doesn't mean we don't have them. So we have the categories that the superintendent and her team have been using to build this year's budget that makes sense. I think if we want to go about the process of changing them, that's the discussion we should have as a group to make that look differently.
Yes, but you and I differ as to whether we ever approved them in the first place.
Well, they've existed for a long time, and so they don't get reconfirmed every year for the new budget. It's been the practice that we've been using, and if we would like to modify that I'm happy to have that discussion, but I'm not going to do it without having that discussion. We have something. It might not be the best, but...
I think we're talking about two different things. So in my mind, we're talking about two different things. So I understood the budget liaisons that were approved last time to, the function was to work with our current finance team to come up with a reporting system that was consistent, because we've tried a few different ones this year. We've had some that the towns help us with, some that we've started, and then a new one. Come up with a reporting system so that we're reporting consistently to the school committee where we are on track with our budget. That was what I understood the budget liaison positions to be.
That was the first thing that I
I was saying, and this
said,
is
yeah.
we just approved these minutes. It's the finance, budget liaison to work with the school finance team to create a consistent budget report that would present the budget status in a clear, concise, and accurate manner. That it wouldn't be micromanaging, but should be able to understand it in a way that's easy to follow and to recognize for the school committee, that it's staying on track.
I think the other piece is, as we start to think about FY 27 budget, I think that Mr. Moskovich's point is that we should probably have at that point, maybe a budget advisory committee. These are liaisons to help us with this one task. It's not a small task, but a task. I think that it would be appropriate for us to have a budget advisory committee that may include people, so that we can think about if we want to change the way the budget's presented, because we hear from lots of people that the budget is confusing, that it's hard to tell what's in each one of the line items, what do those cost centers look like, and to be able to determine what our budget process is going to look like moving forward for FY 27. That is bigger work, I think, than what I envisioned the budget liaisons doing.
Okay, so that would have been my second one. My first one, everybody agreed with, right? I guess I misunderstood. I thought we were trying to tackle that now, what you just said.
Yeah, I think it sort of goes back to what I'm saying before. We are still trying to make sure that the 68.2 million is the right amount of funding. We are still working with some of these cuts. This is a very delicate, intricate process. And I don't think we're at the point yet where we can start thinking about changing what those costs, how the budget is like presented in Munis right now, how we've already moved it forward to the town manager for right now.
Okay.
I think that is more something we should talk about maybe at a summer retreat, what that's going to look like. I think that would probably make sense to hear from other school committees or bring somebody in who might have some experience with what a budget advisory committee look like. Sometimes you have a committee like that might have community members involved in it so they can help spread the word about the budget process. But that is something that is probably a little bit down the road. I don't know that right now our financial team can sit with, to be honest, to sit and be able to do that because we are needing to close out this really challenging year where we're a $4 million deficit and be ready for fall of next year.
All right, so it's TBD work that we have to do, just not right now.
Right, and I think that
Okay.
committee could look a little different than I think we would want to have more representation on that committee.
Okay.
My personal opinion.
Does that clarify kind of, I think, what we're looking for?
Yeah, I mean, I had.
At this time?
Yeah.
Okay.
It does for me. I
Okay.
mean, does that work for you? At least for now?
Well, I said that I understand that the staff can only work
Right.
20 hours a day.
But then I think
We
that
can't
committee
really
needs to be a
expect
little
more
bit
than it's
bigger
fair
so
to
that
expect.
we have an understanding of what we're all going into agreeing, right? So I think that it's limited if it's just 2 school committee members that are making that decision without bringing in a larger group of people to say what our budget process should look like.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love, that works for me. I mean, that's the goal I want to get to, for sure. So for now, we'll redefine our mission the way you just suggested.
I don't think it's redefining, I think it's adhering to what was
Well,
defined.
okay.
I think it's just
Just
clarifying.
A little clarification.
I put it to the fact that we were all at a single table like this last time. We couldn't see each other, and maybe there was just a little bit of miscommunication.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think if we could get some examples of what a presentation would look like that's coming forward to the school committee, and we can say, okay, maybe we need to add this or take out this, or we
Right.
don't need that much, or maybe a little more here.
Yeah,
Of
I
what
think
it, what it comes like on our slide when we.
Exactly,
when
yeah,
it's
that was what
presented.
started this whole thing,
Yes.
actually, in the first place.
Yeah.
Yes, because I was frustrated by that. So, yeah, I'm good.
Okay. All right, School Committee Hall of Fame nominations. Jill?
Could you click on the thing, because I don't want to say the wrong day and then get in trouble. We have our wonderful Hall of Fame nomination process is open right now. We have had a nomination to add to our pile so far. Thank you. I haven't even looked at it yet, but thank you to whoever has submitted the materials. I look forward to reading them alongside the committee, which will be meeting in May. The due date is April 30th, so you still have just over 3 weeks to make sure you nominate your that educator from North Andover that made a significant impact on your life and in the school system. Please check out the criteria on the website to see the criteria that we need to have as at least a baseline term of service, since how long since they've retired, et cetera.
All right, thank you. Okay, moving on to School Building Committee updates. Any updates on North Andover Middle School?
No, we meet next week.
Okay, and on Kittredge?
Haven't had a meeting since our last school committee meeting, so
All right.
no updates, but we've got a big decision from MSBC in May.
Okay, all right, great. Okay, we're going to go into our continued business. We have the North Andover High School competency determination. This was brought before us last meeting. Since we no longer have the MCAS as a graduation requirement, was determining what graduation requirements competency determination requirements we have for our graduating students. Were there any questions about that? I think, you have questions?
I have ideas that I'd like to express.
Okay.
Yes, sort of a question. One of the things Ms. Ando, one of the things I asked of you over email to be ready to answer tonight was one of my worries is making sure that across the 9th and 10th grade, with so many different classes happening, that we have consistency in what's asked of students and in grading and determining that the competency determination is fair and equitable. And that really leads us to the work that could need to be done regarding grading practices and curriculum that is being used for our kiddos.
Absolutely.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
And so, yes, and I did some research with our department heads, and I think we're doing really great work in some areas, and there's always more work to do. And so the idea that in math, biology in grade 9, but math and English in grades 9 and 10, there is evidence of some common assessments in some subjects in some years, and then there's a need for others. And so absolutely, as far as and that's inconsistent across departments, whereas some departments are trying HQIM, but maybe don't necessarily have common assessments, and then other departments have common assessments but haven't dabbled in the HQIM yet. And so I'm working closely with Megan Pinkston and the department heads in order to absolutely, we're doing great things, but there's absolutely more work to do there.
I know we need to make sure that the class of 25 is able to have their competency determinations validated so they can graduate and go on to college next year or wherever post-secondary plans that they might have. So I'm happy to support this for this year because that's what should happen. I'm wondering if there's a way for us to start doing some of that work next year to really look at making sure that I feel like, yes, MCAS was the high-stakes thing to make sure that kids had what they needed. And I feel like, for instance, 9th and 10th grade English is now, those courses are still high stakes in a way in that we have to make sure that all kids have an equitable opportunity to access materials and be graded fairly, to ensure that they do get a competency determination. So I was wondering, can we start piloting or experimenting maybe in ELA next year? I know we have a department coordinator who's on the curate committee that is incredibly wise and at using HQIM and implementing it and evaluating it and what could be good. Can we start working towards that next year?
Absolutely.
In some ways, maybe a unit or two over the course of the year or something.
And you're not unique in this concern about being able to pass the competency determination this year because we have kids who need to graduate in May. And they're actually, they're revisiting this at the state level and at the Mass Association of Superintendents level. And so there'll be much discussion about competency determination going forward. I found out that the English department does not currently use HQIM, but there have been discussions around a pilot for 9th grade as early as this fall. And so absolutely, we will continue to encourage, explore, and work to those. If we have common curriculum, we can have common assessments and common ways that we look at those assessments, and so that we can guarantee a certain level of competency for each student finishing 9th and 10th grade.
Any indication which HQIM at this point you might be looking at, or will we get?
No,
not that you have to.
No,
but I'd love to know which one, just because I love these things.
So would I. I have to. That I will discuss with Dr. Paradise, the English department chair, who's sitting on the curate committee. So I'm assuming, and so 9th grade ELA seems like a really great place to start. Our biology department is actually working with Open Syed as far as using their own internally designed curriculum and exploring some Open Syed among others. And so our biology department is actually probably deepest into the use of high-quality instructional materials at this point.
The limiting factor being there's not very many in science of HQIM to go to,
Mhm.
versus in ELA math, there are
A
a
few
number
more.
of different ones
Mhm.
to look at.
There was one other question about like D minus as a threshold or as a passing grade. And so we don't have a D minus on our grading scale. A D is the lowest passing grade. But yes, if a student were to achieve a D in 9th and 10th grade English, that they would earn the competency determination. Very, very similar to that if a student scored a 471 on the MCAS with a passing score being 470, it would be the minimum requirement. And so that was another question that came up.
Is that roughly is that, I don't want to say equivalent, but is that the same level of competency or demonstration of important skills and
I would estimate yes, and the idea that like the very edge of needs improvement would be that about 470, which would pass traditionally in MCAS, which would be like a passing or a D in a class. Again, I think we have a lot of work to do to align all of that. When we say our work is standards-based, it means that we try our best to align it to the standards. And so there's always improvement to be done there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Question, did you say that the, two questions actually, you referred to some committee, I couldn't quite make it out, it started with CU?
Oh, curate. Curate, so it's like.
CURATE,
Yes.
curriculum ratings by teachers.
Yes.
CU, curriculum, RA's ratings, TE is teachers.
And so nationally, there's Ed Reports, which is like consumer reports for educational materials. On the state level, we have a panel called Curate, which is the state has employed a group of teachers in order to review curriculum and put out similar ratings.
Okay, thank you for that. And
So we
then-
have a teacher that sits on that panel
That
for
sits
English.
on that state panel. Okay, great. The second question, did you also say that the Mass recommended core curriculum requirements, grad requirements, that list that's there and sort of towards the bottom, is being reviewed? Is it under review? Did you say that?
It wasn't, no, but I was trying to answer your question as far as like, where does world language, right now we require 2 years of the same language for world language for graduation. So we have to keep thinking about competency determination different from graduation, whereas competency determination is almost a subset of graduation where it's replacing the MCAS, but the idea that like we aren't looking at this time to adjust our graduation requirements.
Okay.
And the question that I think we were getting at was we don't have a risk of not being able to offer enough seats in courses for everyone to meet their minimum graduation requirements.
Okay. I actually was coming at it from a slightly different angle, which is I was a little bit surprised to see how little computer proficiency is required in terms of credits, because that's like one semester, right?
Half a year.
Half a year, yeah, or half a year. Just, that strikes me as kind of small. But, I mean, if that's the Mass recommendation, I guess it is what it is, but, okay.
There's also a test students can take, like a computer proficiency. There's also a computer proficiency test that students can take, and I know Mr. Wampler is working on improving that. There's also AP computer courses that a lot of students take anyways. So.
No, sure. I'm just thinking any high school graduate should have a certain level, right? That's where I'm coming from. But
did that answer your question about the world language?
Yes, thank you.
Good, thank you.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I was kind of on the same line as Joe. I understand we've got to put something in place because we need to have a requirement for our upcoming graduates, but I do think we want to continue to evaluate this and think about what we can do to do best by our students.
Absolutely, yes. We have the same goal.
Yeah.
So the motion is officially, do we have to vote on, are we voting on the competency determination, or are we voting on the new language for the program of studies to reflect the competency determination?
I think it's technically the program of studies that needs to be approved.
Or do we need to do both?
Including, probably be safe to do both. I think we have the new program of studies that includes the competency determination. And that has to go in the handbook as well.
Okay.
Well, Madam Chair, I will move that. What she said. How about that? Okay. I move that we accept these recommendations for competency determination requirements and that they be placed in the program of studies.
In the handbook.
And the handbook.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, let's go ahead and take a vote. Mr. Hicks?
Yes.
Mr. Moskovich?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Cormier?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the other item of business is the North Andover High School parking fees. It's currently at $40 a year. The proposal was to increase it to $200 a year. I know our students spoke about this. I had a question, and I don't know if this is something you've talked about with other students. Is there any discussion about like carpooling, going in on spots? One, to do, well, it's better for the environment, to just decrease the amount of cars that are going in and out of the parking lot every day, save on those fees. Has that been talked about at all?
Not really. I feel like honestly a lot of students are very ambitious to get their licenses because a lot of students are able to have a lot of different schedules, so they're able to do extracurriculars, and a lot of students are very busy, so they'll have an extracurricular and then they'll probably have to go home for like 10 minutes and then come back to the school. So there's just a lot of scheduling conflicts for most students to carpool.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Ms. Lathrop, we had received some feedback on, or some questions about what the money could be used for. Typically, when you have money coming in, it has to be spent in the same way, through the same line item correctly. But if we are bringing this in as part of student, how would we classify it? Like student activities, student whatever, does that then open us up to be able to spend in other ways to benefit students?
Yes, basically. I think because you're bringing it in as a student activity fee, as long as the money's going back to the students, and it benefits the student. The money has to go back to benefit the students.
So we can definitely like use it to make sure our library continues to have good access to materials, and we can make sure that student activities themselves have access to what they might need in terms of like if there's a need for a bus to go someplace or a field trip or whatever. Like this can fund any student activities, as well as the potential for in the future a lot monitor or a lot shed, right?
I believe so, yes.
When do students need to make the payment to reserve their spot? When is that due by?
It's usually the end of August. I want to say they do it like a week before school. They just go to the main office, and that's seniority first, so seniors get to go first, and then after that juniors.
Do you have to line up? Or do you line up first come first served, or is there a lottery system?
Oh yeah, it's first come first serve. So there's a line, and then like you get to choose where your spot is. So Harper actually has the best spot. She was first in line. She got the best spot. Mine's all the way in the back.
And then do we know if there was, I know this was brought up by our student representatives, was there any discussion about doing a graduated increase?
Not that I know of, but Ms. Holman has reached out and said that they're happy to relook at this a little bit if that's something that you'd like them to do. I did share with her the comparable communities that the town uses for lots of things that we do, and I asked her to look at the comparable communities to see. I just shared that with her today, I'll be honest, so I don't have that information yet. But, you know, I think that she said that she's willing to go back and perhaps do something gradual or an adjustment.
I think I'd like to see what the other comparables are and maybe consider a graduated adjustment. I don't know if any of my other committee members feel the same way.
I could use a reminder of, for whatever reason, not that we have 8 million other things in front of us. I'm just trying to remember the purpose behind the increase was, is it the last bullet here? The possible uses?
Possible uses, correct.
And so update for the library. Could it be used to help? I'm just thinking like some of the feedback I've seen personally about the lot monitor and the lot shed is sort of is like weird, right? It's tied to, you wouldn't need it if, you know what I mean?
I think
like
people are saying that.
yeah.
I think one of the issues is that there are a lot of students that park illegally at the high school, so they're parking in spots that aren't technically parking spots, and or parking in spots that may not be their spots, and so
enforcement.
It's been challenging a little bit, so to be able to enforce that.
Okay.
Sure.
It's been a problem every year, but it's usually a problem that happens towards the end of the year when more sophomores and juniors get their licenses and sophomores aren't able to get a parking spot. So if it's like a lot monitor, if that's needed, I don't know if it's needed for the whole year. Because I haven't had any problems. I know Harper hasn't had any problems, except maybe during election day when someone stole my parking spot. But like, that was.
I think they've also, we're talking about, there are a lot of campuses that have someone that when you drive onto campus, what's your purpose for being here, kind of monitor in terms of safety and security. And those are some things that we all think about. So I think that was something that Ms. Holman was thinking about as well.
Okay.
And we also heard that it's a huge increase for students paying it for themselves, and that they struggle. We would be using the same metrics to determine reduced rates for students as we would for reduced lunch, et cetera.
Correct. I think they're projecting possibly waiving 30.
Okay.
They would need to waive about 30.
These would be students who need to get to work or something like that.
Based on the same ways that we would reduce any kinds of fees in the district, yeah.
But I think in this situation, a lot of these students are paying for it themselves, so not necessarily their family's income, but what they're able to bring in, and this is self-funded by them,
Right.
which is different.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, I share your desire to have another look at it.
You still have time.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see the comparable communities, because that's our economic comparable communities, right? Let's look at those, see what they're charging, and then go from there. That would be my thought.
Yeah, so let's bring this back for a third read and take a further look into other comparable.
We'll come back with that and what a graduated schedule might look like.
At least let people plan for it, right? Like 1 or 2 years.
Yeah.
You could also, in terms of a schedule, make it, this is going to sound harsh, make it more expensive for juniors versus seniors, or one or the, like.
Yeah,
As an idea, it could be a really, really bad idea. I mean, just like.
It's hard. I mean, I think this is one of the things we heard today.
As you get older, there's more
Somebody
responsibilities
came-
and a bigger need
At
versus.
public comments, someone talked about potentially having sponsors for certain kinds of things. It is a revenue-generating source in a time that we have some challenges. I went to student council the day that after it had been announced. I was there to hear about their conference that they went on, but that's what they bombarded me with when I walked in the door about the fee. And I did say to them that, if you know that it's going to be $200, that you plan for that, right? The same way that you plan for some other kinds of things. Now, maybe 200 is too much, but that is reality, right? Sometimes if the cost of something goes up, you have to start planning for those kinds of things. So, but we certainly can revisit it and bring back, again, we listen to the voices.
All right, thank you. Okay, we're going to move into new business. We have town meeting warrant articles. So this is coming in as a first read. However, there's a request to suspend the policy to approve town meeting warrant articles on the first read so that they can make it to print. The other option is to make a recommendation on town meeting floor.
Procedure question?
Yes.
Do we have to suspend the policy each time we want to vote on them, or can we suspend the policy to then vote on each of them? It's probably better to do it for each of them.
I think we should do it for each of them.
Just want to make sure I understand process.
I think, yes. I think because we're going to be taking them one by one.
Okay.
I think it'd be a safer bet to do it individually.
Perfect. Thank you.
So our first one, Article 2, authorization of the town manager or superintendent of schools regarding contracts in excess of 3 years. I think this is a pretty
We do this
standard
every year.
one we do every year.
It allows us to negotiate for longer-term contracts, like our transportation contract right now, I believe, is for 3 years with an option to extend for a fourth and fifth year, and we can't do that unless we authorize something like this each year, because it only is in effect for 1 year.
And is that the only example we have right now under the school is transportation?
Maybe copiers.
Copiers.
Okay, all right.
So any questions on this article?
I imagine the town has some.
Yeah, town does, but yeah.
I move that we recommend passage of this.
We need to suspend the
Oh, I'm
rules
sorry.
on this one
Suspend the
first.
rules.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Okay, I'll take a vote. Mr. Hicks?
Yes.
Mr. Moskovich? Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Cormier?
Yes.
I vote yes.
Now I move that we recommend passage of this article.
Favorable action.
Yeah.
Favorable action
On Article 2.
on Article 2.
Seconded.
Okay, any other discussion? Mr. Hicks?
Yes.
Mr. Moskovich?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Cormier?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Okay. Our next one, Article 7, appropriation, capital improvement plan for fiscal year 2026, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or otherwise provide a sum or sums of money in the aggregate of $13,054,999 to fund the capital projects identified
On the back.
on the back.
Notably, Madam Chair, there are a number of capital projects that are, will directly benefit the schools, public address system at the high school, damaged stormwater, outfall pipe, IT needs at the schools, backup generators, both fixing them, new textbook adoptions for HQIM, fixing the drainage system at Atkinson, and updating Phase 2 updates of the high school auditorium.
And as a reminder, capital improvements, those are one-time fees. These are not reoccurring costs.
So, Madam Chair, I move we suspend the rules, to suspend our policies rather or our practices rather, and to be able to do a vote on first read for Article 7.
Second?
Any discussion? All right, Mr. Hicks?
Yes.
Mr. Moskovich?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Cormier?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
And then, Madam Chair, I'd like to move that we recommend favorable action for Article 7 as printed in our packet.
Second?
Any other discussion?
I think it's important to note that a number of these are being funded through, especially for us, are being funded through free cash.
All right. Are we ready for a vote? Mr. Hicks?
Yes.
Mr. Moskovich?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Cormier?
Yes.
And I vote yes. All right, we have Article 11, appropriation general fund for fiscal year 2026, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or otherwise provide a sum or sums of money for the purpose of funding the general fund for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2025 through ending June 30th, 2026.
What paper was next in your packet? I think mine is out of order. So it's article, is it?
This one was
Article 11,
That one was,
this one went with the CIP.
oh.
Yeah.
second part
Okay.
of the CIP, or third page.
So, Madam Chair, I move that we suspend our practice and be able to vote first read on Article 11.
Second.
All right, any discussion? Okay, we'll take a vote. Mr. Hicks?
Yes.
Mr. Moskovich?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Cormier?
To suspend, right?
To
Yes.
suspend, yes. And I vote yes. All right.
All right, now, Madam Chair, I would like to move that we recommend favorable action on Article 11, which is the operating budget we've been talking about of $68.2 million.
Well, that's included in the
Is included as part of the
overall
overall budget of 100.
general fund for the town.
Yeah, of 135.
Any discussion on
Yes.
this?
So, 2 months ago,
Oh, we have a second, sorry.
2 months ago, it looked like the Finance Committee was going to recommend something like $64.8 million. And this is $3.5 million more than looked like it was going to happen. And I think that people need to understand that that didn't just happen. It happened because of active cooperation between the school committee and the other boards, and a spirit of listening to each other, and our realizing that, well, first of all, this represents an increase in property taxes roughly twice, perhaps a little more than twice the normal average. This is not just sort of routine. And it represents a change from an otherwise reasonable plan for the use of those funds. And although it isn't included here in the discussion, it's pretty much understood that the last $1.8 million of excess levy capacity will be used to help us finance the final year of the teacher's contract. I understand that lots of people are disappointed at this, but it could have been a whole lot worse. And I think that I want everybody to understand that.
All right. And to be clear, these are operational expenses. This is an operational budget.
Right.
We're voting again on the entire recommended FY26. Any other questions or discussion? Okay. Do I have a motion? Did we
Yeah, you
have a
did.
motion?
You had a
We had a
motion.
motion. All right, are we ready to vote?
Yeah.
So what was that?
I'm struggling.
Well, you're on.
I'll make
Yeah.
a comment. I mean, I'll say it again. Nobody likes this. It's what I feel is the optimal solution, the best of a very bad set of choices, put it that way, in my opinion.
About a month ago, a month and a half, we forwarded and we voted on what we would want our budget to be at a meeting that we had at the high school. I think it was the high school. And I actually voted against that because I wanted more money. But I also know how important it is that we get a budget through town meeting. And I share Ms. Cormier's fears that she mentioned earlier, that failure to pass a budget is catastrophic for a town. Going month to month based on a previous year's number is scary. And I feel like one of the ways that we can protect ourselves against that is to make sure that we are unified and that we are projecting that that this is the next best thing that we can do for our schools. So I am torn.
All right, well, it's time for a vote.
And I go first, don't I?
You do, Mr. Hicks.
I vote yes.
Mr. Moskovich.
Yes.
Mr. Brown.
Yes.
Ms. Cormier.
Yes.
I also vote yes. All right, moving on to Article 14 is the transfer of $45,000 from the Special Education Stabilization Fund to FY25 General Fund. This is to see if the town will vote to transfer an amount not to exceeding $45,000. In the past few years, the schools have moved away from using this source and have instead used the Finance Committee reserve to offset any special education deficits created during the fiscal year. Due to the deficit 6 school budget, the funds are being requested this year.
So this is to actually use the remaining, to transfer the money from the stabilization fund to the general fund so that we can use it.
Right.
Thank you.
For FY25, right?
To fund the FY25
Yeah.
general fund budget.
Yep.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules to vote on Article 14 after one read.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Mr. Hicks?
Yes.
Mr. Moskovich?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Cormier?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
So, Madam Chairman, it's actually to, you said from, it's to.
To the
fis-
FY
2025
25
general fund. So it offsets a part, but a small part of something like $2.5 million from the general fund that's going to be used to cover our deficit this year.
Yep.
And something that hasn't been appreciated is that over the course of these 2 years, the schools have received almost $10 million of one-time money. I mean, we've had lots of people suggest, why don't we fund the schools through one-time grants? Well, we have been doing that for 2 years. And this is, and there's, we couldn't be where we are. We would have had disastrous layoffs had we not received those funds.
Madam Chair, I have a question, and I apologize, it's maybe because it's almost 10 o'clock, but the last sentence in the box.
Yeah.
due to the deficit in the FY
I
'26
was gonna
school
say, I
budget,
think that's supposed to be
that's a
FY
typo.
25.
So that's gotta be 25,
I
right?
circled it and put a clip
Okay,
behind myself.
that's
to
wrong.
talk
Okay,
to
we
somebody
have,
about
we're
that.
not we're not gonna be in a deficit next year.
Right.
We are-
It's-
we
were
are not.
Yeah,
We are
not.
Yeah, I saw, yeah. it's
Okay.
all
We all
to
caught
the
that. All
FY
right.
25.
It hasn't gone to
budget.
print just yet.
All right, do I have a motion?
I'd like to move I'd like a motion to recommend favorable action on Article 14
As amended?
as amended for fiscal year '25.
Second.
Any other discussion? All right, Mr. Hicks?
Yes.
Mr. Moskovich?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Cormier?
Yes.
I vote yes. Article 15 is to close the Special Education Stabilization Fund created by the 2015 town meeting. So in the past few years, the schools have moved away from using this source and have instead used the Finance Committee reserve to offset any special education deficits created during the fiscal year. The town is committed to moving away from using one-time revenue sources to offset general operating needs and feels that reserves are a more appropriate way to fund unanticipated needs that arise during the year. The town will continue to budget annually for reserves and adopt financial policies that document how the reserves shall be used for special education needs.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to suspend rules to allow us to vote on Article 15 after a first read.
Second?
Any discussion? All right, Mr. Hicks?
Yes.
Mr. Moskovich?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Cormier?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion for the committee to vote favorable action on Article 15.
Second?
Any discussion?
I think I expressed my thoughts earlier, but I will reiterate them. I think it's
You did, actually.
I think it's incredibly important that we have money in reserve to for unanticipated costs, especially for the town, but especially for our special education programming. I have concerns, and I agree with the town manager, that the stabilization fund was a mechanism that could have been used under that state law, but it's no longer the only mechanism to use, and I think it's too restrictive. So I prefer to close it out and put the money into a finance reserve, and maybe next year we establish a special or a new special education reserve fund.
Yeah, given recent history, I'd say that's a splendid idea. We should absolutely do it.
Any other discussion? All right, let's take a vote. Mr. Hicks?
Yes.
Mr. Moskovich?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Cormier?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Madam Chair, since we just recommended favorable action on closing the stabilization fund, I think it would be, we do not need to take any action on the citizen warrant that was presented earlier, as they are in conflict with each other.
Well, shouldn't we recommend no to be consistent with
I
what
don't
we
think we
just
in
did?
general
We don't-
take action on
Yeah,
citizen
we don't need-
warrants,
we
and I
don't
think
need
in this
to.
case, we extra don't need to.
No. All right, let's move on to Article 16. We have the North Andover Public Schools FY25 General Fund Budget Adjustment. So the North Andover Public Schools has an appropriation deficit in the FY25 budget year, which is the current year's budget, and we'll be presenting an article at town meeting asking for the use of free cash to offset that deficit.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move that we suspend the policies and take a vote on first read of Article 16, proposed Article 16.
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
Will Article 16 just authorize an amount to be specified later?
Yes.
Seems,
She
really?
left it blank.
It's a blank check?
It's not a blank check.
How do you get those?
Um,
And signed, right? Signed blank check.
Right
We're
now
only
it's-
discussing
it's
suspending the
open.
rules right now.
Well,
you're
I
right.
won't repeat myself later, but the question
So,
stands.
Yes.
any comment on suspending the rules? All right, let's vote. Mr. Hicks?
Yes.
Mr. Moskovich?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Cormier?
Yes.
And I vote yes. All right, do I have a motion on?
Yes, you do. Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we recommend favorable action on Article 16 to vote to transfer from free cash to the general fund to offset the deficits of our public schools.
And as Mr. Moskovich noted, there is no number there yet.
Well, I mean, I feel a little awkward, except of course it comes to us. If it were going to go anywhere else, I would hesitate to vote for an open-ended authorization to an unstated person.
Right, we don't have
to give indefinite amounts.
We don't have a second yet, so.
Oh, I'll second.
Okay.
All right, now discussion.
Well, does somebody remember whether there will actually be a number or a person or a committee that is designated to make this
Spoke about this
decision?
briefly at the select board meeting this week. I think our deficit has changed over time. I think she had left it open right now, depending upon what our final deficit number looks like.
But presumably when it comes to a vote, it'll say
She would have
X
to
amount of
specify.
dollars
She'll
to
have to
be
specify.
approved by such and
Yes.
such a person or committee?
No, she'll have to present a number at
Town
meeting.
town meeting to be approved by town meeting. We just don't know what the number is going to be.
We have a
She
pretty
will
good idea.
tell us at town meeting so we can vote on it. And I think we should vote favorable action so that we
Oh,
can have the
yes.
money.
Well, right, but at the moment, we would expect it to be that $2-point-something million that you showed us before, right? It may alter a little bit, and she needs the freedom to alter it. That's my interpretation.
Correct,
anyway.
right. All right, any other discussion?
And we could put that number in now, but it would be messier at town meeting to then change that number versus we just waited to have the number.
That's fine.
Okay, so Mr. Hicks?
Yes.
Mr. Moskovich?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Cormier?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Okay. Our next item of new business are the CREST articles. I'll turn this over to Mr. Moskovich.
So this is an awful lot of paperwork. I've read through the black text and the red text twice, and as near as I can tell, the only significant change is that CREST is allowing ourselves, since we're a member. So for the audience, CREST is a collaborative to which we belong, which allows us to place children in special needs in a facility that's quite competent and generally quite a bit less expensive than private schools. It allows the collaborative to charge non-member districts a higher amount than it charges us. So it's obviously in our interest to do it. And generally speaking, we want as many of the placements available to be available to us and to our fellow members. The others look like just general language that makes the existing articles of agreement consistent with new DESI requirements, basically.
And
You
all-
read the black letters and the red ones, and it's kind of hard to figure out what the difference is, other than somebody's a little more comfortable with some detail or other.
Ms. Lathrop,
Mhm.
how much money do we are a member of CREST. How much do we spend? I guess Ms. O'Neill, you would be able to answer that one. Sorry.
So we have, there's an overall member fee to belong to CREST. I actually don't have that on the tip of my tongue, but I could find that out for you. We have several students who have been placed at CREST at a variety of their programs, and CREST is a great partner. You know, when we were having transportation difficulties for some of our students who needed wheelchair vans, CREST tried to partner with us to see if we could use one of their vans, contract out with them for that. So they're a great resource. Their placements range in price. Some of them fall right below the foundation amount for Circle Breaker, some with the added on services and teaching assistants, etc., go far above. So
But we
specifically-
want to stay a member of Crest. 'Cause
Correct.
It's a good thing for a variety of
It is
reasons.
a good thing.
And we therefore should approve these because we would
This is
have to
correct.
approve this so that we can stay
Correct.
a member of Crest, which is a
It
very
is
good thing.
they provide placements for us. They provide transportation options. They provide contracted services for us, all at a reduced rate. They provide professional development. They do so often at a free cost, and they provide a network for people like me who would be on an island by myself in a district, the ETLs, and other service providers. It's a
Thank
good
you.
thing to be part of a collaborative.
Great, thank you.
Mr. O'Neill, roughly how many students do we have that take use of that? Do you know? Approximately.
It'll come back on as you speak.
I don't know exactly how many Crest students. I have a little spreadsheet here. I could count them. We probably have anywhere between 8 and 12 students that go to Crest.
But they're high, these are high need
Their needs
individuals.
vary, but anytime a student goes out of district, it means that their needs, for some particular reason, could not be met by the district.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
I think one of the most promising things would be if they could help us with transportation, because that's extraordinarily expensive. And we would like to think that whatever it is, 13 or 14 districts working together could find a way, so I, every once in a while, kind of push in that direction.
Okay, this is a first read, so.
Actually, Madam Chair,
Yes.
we need to do this before April 30th.
Oh, you're right.
Oh, yes, I forgot.
So, and that brings up the point where we were supposed to meet on April 17th. We will not have a quorum at that meeting, so we will not be having an April 17th meeting.
So-
Our next meeting will be May 1st.
Should we move to suspend the rules to approve this?
You can move that.
You can make that
I
motion.
move that we suspend the rules to allow us to act on this, on the single meeting.
I'll second that motion.
Any discussion?
I think we should do that because of the timely nature of the.
Thank you for seeing that, Mr. Hicks.
Yeah, thank you. All right, Mr. Hicks?
Yes.
Mr. Moskovich?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yep.
Ms. Cormier?
Yes.
I vote yes.
Madam Chair, I'm going to read it directly from the letter because they have specific language they want. I'd like to make a motion that the North Andover Public School Committee hereby approves the amendments to Crest's Articles of Agreement as approved by Crest's Board of Directors on March 12th and 26th, 2025.
Seconded.
Okay, any discussion? All right, Mr. Hicks?
Yes.
Mr. Moskovich?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes?
Ms. Cormier?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Okay.
Is there another item of new business? If not, I'd like to bring up one.
Well, needs to be on the agenda to be able to discuss new business.
Well, so let me tell you what the item is. I don't think we should act on this, but I think it's actually important that we discuss it, particularly since we're not planning to meet for a month. You might have missed this in all the furor about the tariffs, but the president announced yesterday that school districts like ours will not be allowed to receive federal funds, and we're talking Title I and special education money to the tune of something like $1.5 million to $2 million a year, unless the president approves the way we teach history, how we recruit people, whether we have programs, so-called DEI programs. This would be a really serious blow to our curriculum. And, we're going to face, it looks like within a short period of time, we're going to have to make a decision as a town whether we agree and give up control of our history curriculum, or whether we join a suit, which would mean that the town would have to, I should say that the special education money the legal requirement under federal law that we spend that money has nothing to do with whether or not the government actually gives us the funds to help with it. So we will have to spend that money whether or not we get federal reimbursement. That isn't quite true with Title I, but we're talking about aid specifically to our neediest students. So it would really be abhorrent to cut those programs. So I think the decision that the town as a whole will have to make is, are we willing to fight, recognizing that for some period of time we would have to come up with funds, which obviously we can't do within our budget. We would have to use other town funds with the expectation and hope that our court case would prevail and we would get the money. But there would be no such guarantee. And I think this is of enormous importance, and it would be, and that's why I think it's urgent that we put this in front of the town, because this may come to a head before we meet again. I'm sorry, but the reason that you didn't put this in the agenda is because it hadn't happened yet. It's not because you were careless in any way.
Yeah.
But that is the choice.
Madam Chair, the Ed Department sent the letter to districts and asked that it be completed within 10 days, is what the,
I haven't received it yet.
well, that's what the thing, yeah, we probably haven't gotten it yet because it was announced today.
Is it going to the state or the districts? I
so
saw something
there's
I thought it was going to the state.
I
That's
saw
what
something
I
going to
thought.
the state.
Yeah, I share your concerns, Mr. Moskovich, and I was looking at what they're actually asking
it said state.
districts to do. And the language is, at this time, in my opinion, bad, but murky. So they say, given the text of Title VI and the assurances you've already been given, any violation of Title VI, including the use of DEI programs to advantage one's race over another, is impermissible, and that the use of certain DEI practices can violate federal law. They're using that to, I think, mean affirmative action programs, as we used to call them.
Yes.
They have not specifically yet talked about it in terms of certain curriculum materials, etc. Not that they wouldn't.
I read, the article I read in the newspaper was that this involves their approval, they being people like Elon Musk and company, of the way we teach history.
Okay,
And that
here's
we
what
have,
I'm going to suggest, because I don't think it's an appropriate discussion, being that it's not on the agenda. What I'm going to suggest is that I can reach out to town council, and we can reach out to special counsel and get any advice, and if we need to call a meeting to order, we can certainly do that on an emergency basis. Okay.
But I mean, you watch law firms caving, and you realize you give in to a bully, it just gets worse.
I understand, but I think this is a discussion we need to have with town council and possibly special counsel, and then bring it forward in a meeting if that's what's advisable. Okay. All right. We have public comment on the agenda. It is late, but I will leave a few minutes for anybody who would like to make public comment. If you come up to the microphone, just state your name and address, please.
I don't know. My name is Alejandro Sarabia. I live in High Street, 65 High Street. I'm a teacher in the public, in the high school, and I'm a language teacher. And I would take your words in terms of the program and what happened. It's clear that we are going to have 4 years of languages, and people will be able to take AP, and I think that's the word that was said here, but we need to understand what is the program look like. And to me it's like an iceberg. The tip of the iceberg is the AP probably, but we cut underneath, and the iceberg is not the same. You said that...
Please address comments to the chair, not to Ms. Lathrop.
Excuse me?
Address all comments to the chair and not to Ms. Lathrop.
Oh, well, but she said that she took Spanish AP, and thanks for doing that. It's like, I'm proud of you. But you said, well, she said, sorry.
That's okay.
She said that it was a disadvantage. I think that's what the word that she used. The problem now is that it will be a disadvantage by default. I want you to understand that is not offering a 4-year curriculum the same as offering a 5-year program. It's not the same. So if the word is we're going to have AP, is correct, but we have to recognize that it will not be the same. We will not have the same amount of 5, 4s in those tests, but we're going to have more 2s and 1s, or just people who are not going to take the test or the course. So we are damaging the program, whether we offer AP or not. And that's an important part of our curriculum. It's as an educator, PhD in education, I understand that the more diverse, and I'm talking about diversity in terms of race and things like that, but the broader the program is, the healthier, the more solid, the more chances our students going to college and to have a solid college. So if we want our students to get a heavy transcript into colleges, to different colleges, we need to offer programs more solid, not just 4 years, but 5 years at least, and just using the same words. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Lauren Stedman, 575 South Bradford Street. I'm also the vice chair of the North Andover CPAC, but I'm here speaking primarily as a private citizen, so these are my thoughts and my feelings. I feel really compelled. Mind you, this is Autism Acceptance Month, so to me it's a very personal issue, but overall during the course of this last 2 years, 3 years that I've been in this town, one of the things that I always mentioned was we moved here for the special education department. And then I started hearing, people talk about blaming special education for the deficits in the budget and so on and so forth, well before we knew just how great this deficit was. And as people have started to use special education as a shield in their public comments and that they really care about this vulnerable population, I urge you as a school committee, please, when you're having your community chats and we're hearing people discussing things that they want to know more information and they feel so passionate and they feel so strong and all these great emotions that we're seeing emerge from this deficit, we have things like CPAC. We're here. We're here to be an ally. We're here to be an advocate. We're here as a support system. And I can tell you it's really discouraging when it's myself and 4 other very strong women who guide and try to lead this district, speaking for this most vulnerable community, and then sitting here in this meeting and watching some of our educators who I know are on Facebook and social media putting out many things about how they care for their students get up and leave during a conversation about our most vulnerable community and the Crest Collaborative and how that impacts them. So again, I ask that if we speak about that we care about our students and the mission is that we're here for our students, let that be in our actions. Let that be something that's not just about a budget, but it's 365 days a year, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. Because these most vulnerable communities, that's how they live their lives, advocating for their children 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And it's very disheartening to see people use this community as a shield, saying that they're concerned and they are complaining about IEPs, which I'm not saying we have a perfect system, but we do have places and things and people who care who are trying to make a difference, and community involvement has been very low. So I ask, as we talk about the changes that we want to make, let's really look inward and put some action behind our words. Thank you.
Thank you. As I had mentioned earlier, our April 17th meeting has been canceled. Our next meeting will be on May 1st. We do still have those community chats on April 10th and May 1st. May 8th. So community chat, April 10th, meeting, May 1st, community chat, May 8th.
Madam Chair, before I make my motion, can I just say thank you to Cece and the other students for being not just watchers at our meeting today, but being real advocates for their community. I feel like I put that challenge out to you all way back in September, and you've been doing it little by little, and today, like, yes, do that.
And
Like
please,
asking the questions, giving the, yes, do that.
please pass that on to the other three who probably had to leave to do homework.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Mr. Hicks?
Yes.
Mr. Moskovich? Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Cormier? I vote yes, we are adjourned.